see, don't you stop. Just let your feet go clippity clop. Your tail will swish and your wheels go round. Giddy up and homeward bound.
And welcome all to the Rage Zone, as the chat has so elegantly dubbed it. Welcome, everybody. So glad to be back. And it's just super exciting to be talking 28 years later as we get closer and closer to this phenomenal film. And of course, we're getting some new information. It seems like every other day, it seems like every day almost, we're getting new information, new TV spot trailers. And today is no different. We got some good behind the scenes information that has come out recently, highlighting how much of a mad lad Danny Boyle is in filming 28 years later with just a whole slew of iPhones. Which is so great. I mean, and this is something that we're seeing catch on more and more and more within Hollywood and other filmmaking departments, where everyone is starting to film using iPhones, filming big budget studio films with iPhones, which is crazy to see, but it's very cost effective. The maneuverability of the camera rig that the iPhone is set upon allows for a much more dynamic, filming. You can capture shots you can't capture with big rigs. It's pretty interesting. It's pretty interesting to see where that's going. And I can only imagine where it's going to be going a few years from now. But we got some interesting images that have been released of these just incredibly custom rigs with just, sometimes 20 iPhones attached to them, just, out there filming in the wild. This beautiful film 28 years later. It's awesome to know that you can really create something really good and of high value production with just an iPhone these days, as they're capturing 4K images. But that was pretty cool to see. We'll definitely talk a little bit about that. There is a brand spanking new interview that just dropped not long ago with Danny Boyle, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Jodie Comer, and some of the other members of the cast and crew. And a nice interview of 28 years later. And some other interesting stuff that we're going to take a look at this evening. But welcome one, welcome all. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Welcome, and welcome, PM. Are you ready to dive into some 28 years later? And of course, take a look at some of the phenomenal fan theories that we've been getting in our comment sections.
Of course. I love reading all of the fan theories. I am so ready. And that intro, everybody in the chat is loving the intro. And if you have been with the channel for a while, you know that song kind of just fits every show, right? You have used it for Severance and all the other ones. And I love that song. I just can't get enough. It just fits every single series, or in this case, the movie. So good job on that. We love it.
Awesome. I am glad. I'm definitely going to refine it and create a much better one. That one I did like super quick on the fly, so it's not as refined as some of our other intros. But yes, I mean, I love making those. It's always fun to have a nice intro to kick the stream off with. And of course, that doesn't happen without a good song that fits. And yeah, you're right. I mean, we've used that song for multiple different intros now, whether it's from Severance, now this. Yeah, some songs just really fit. Just really fit. But yeah, tonight I am very much looking forward to diving into all of your fan theories. Again, we have been just amazed, PM and I, in terms of all of the incredibly good fan theories that we have been getting in the comment sections of some of these latest videos. Just incredibly brilliant, really brilliant fan theories in some cases. A lot of them are really interesting and could very well turn out to be incredibly accurate. So tonight we thought we would highlight your guys' awesome theories in the chat and in the comment section. Again, we've done quite a few videos over the last week or two, and just about every single one is littered with some phenomenal fan theories. So tonight we are going to highlight some of your guys' theories. We're going to take a look at them, see how accurate they could be, how much they fit within the rules in the world of 28 years later, and of course taking a look at some other new footage as well. But this is going to be fun. I think this is going to be fun. I love looking at the comment sections and seeing all the fan theories. It's one of the coolest parts of being a YouTuber is seeing that interaction and creating that discussion with everybody, because everybody has some really good ideas about this film and where it's going to go.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it reminds me, we need to like get cracking on our UK slang, right? We should be doing a better job at getting the language and the culture of the people.
Yes.
In the comments, one of my favorite things is that a lot of the times you will get people who tell you where they're from. And I love seeing where everybody's from and
Me too.
how far,
Yeah.
the audience of 28 years later is reaching, and that they're mega fans basically everywhere.
And that's what's always so fun about stuff like this. Anytime we're diving into a new show or a new film, especially something like 28 years later, that really does have a massive like global appeal. This has a worldwide global audience, not just for this film, but for the previous franchise. It's a very beloved franchise, especially in the UK, as you mentioned. So yeah, we definitely need to get up on our UK slang. We're gonna have to start calling everybody mate, I think. What is up, mate? But no, it's always cool to see where people are tuning in from. It's always amazed me to see that our small, humble little channel ends up being seen by people all over the world. That never ceases to amaze me, and I'm super honored for that. Super honored for that. But welcome everybody. Welcome. It's going to be fun. We're going to be diving into a lot of fan theories tonight. There's been some really good ones we've been getting, and of course, talking all things 28 years later. And of course, if you didn't have a chance to throw in your specific theory in any of the comment sections of our latest video, you can always throw them in the live chat right here tonight with us, and we will definitely be taking a look at those as well. So yeah, it should be fun. This should be fun. And to kick things off, we got Michael DJ in the house for $5. Thank you so much, Michael. Very much appreciate the $5. Thank you, my friend. I noticed in the trailer, we see the old flag of the Kingdom of England, not the modern UK flag. Maybe our Brit friends could comment on the meaning. Yeah, very well. Maybe they could. I am certainly not an expert in that category. That is for sure. But yes, we see that one flag that is hanging inside Holy Island. The one that we later see on fire later on, which is indicating that something bad might be happening to the community in this very first film. I thought Holy Island would last the first film. I definitely get the feeling the community is going to fall at some point, but I thought they would save that for maybe the second or the third film. But seeing that flag on fire has me worried. Now I'm not so sure Holy Island is even going to survive this first film. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, sound off in the comment section what you guys think about all of that and what you think about Michael Dietschy's comment here as well. Is there a particular reason why they went with an older version of the flag and not the modern one, I wonder? I'm not sure. It's a very good question, Michael. Very good question. English is England, UK is Scotland, Ireland, and Wales, I believe. Yeah, I mean, it is an interesting choice. I mean, 28 years later, of course, it seems like the world has really, not the world, but at least the UK has fallen into disarray over the last few decades. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's an aesthetic choice, if it's just a callback, a way to pay homage to the older flag. Not sure what their thinking was there. But no, it's a very good question, Michael. Very good question indeed. Anything Zombie says, I think Holy Island is a cult. This has been popping up a little bit more and more, and I'm starting to think this is a pretty interesting idea as well. Where we've been so focused on the whole cult aspect of 28 years later, and a lot of us have been assuming it's going to be coming from the mainland. But I think this is an interesting idea that maybe Holy Island itself might have some kind of cult-like behavior, and I feel like we see some evidence of that. I mean, we see that one super creepy character in the weird mask inside Holy Island. Still have no idea what's up with her, why she's in this weird, creepy mask. We see her again in the recent trailers. We see that Holy Island has some very interesting rules that can't be broken in terms of sending out rescue missions and stuff. There's still a whole lot that we really don't know about this community in Holy Island. So no, anything Zombie, you could potentially be right. Who knows? I mean, we're all looking for this cult angle to come from the mainland, but what if it's right in their backyards?
That would make a lot of sense. And really, when you think about it, Just about any group that has rules, regulations, one specific leader, um, sort of rituals that they do, like the rite of passage, right? That you
Yep.
pointed out in your
Yep.
video. We know that there's a very specific way of going about it that
Yep.
could classify as a cult. So I like it
Yeah,
because we kind of have been pointing the finger at the the skulls, right? They look
exactly.
scary. We're thinking definitely if there's a cult, that's the cult. But it could totally be Holy Island. And it would make sense, right? A lot of the times at in the end of the world sort of scenarios, people need to gather, and sometimes they seek religion and community as a way of getting by. One thing that we don't
Yeah.
know yet is who's writing the Jimmy will come with the clouds sign.
Yes.
Who's doing that? Who is tagging this place? And is that in Holy Island, or is that a sign that is in the mainland? So
Hmm.
I think whoever is doing that tagging, that's probably the cult.
I think you're right. I do think you're right. And then we see it again in the mainland when Jamie and his son Spike go into the abandoned building. We got that really awesome 5-minute preview that leaked that shows a more full look at how that scene progresses and how it kind of plays out. And yeah, we see that one body strung upside down with the name Jimmy carved in its chest as well. And I remember when the original trailer came out, a lot of people thought that Jimmy was referring to the original Jim from the first 28 days later. And totally understandable to make that correlation. When you see the name Jimmy, I think a lot of people just naturally think of Cillian Murphy's Jim. But knowing that we have this Jack O'Connell character coming in this film who also seems to be named Jimmy as well, now people are starting to kind of put two and two together that maybe this Jimmy isn't Cillian Murphy's Jim. Maybe this is referring to Jack O'Connell's character. And I'm starting to think that as well. But yeah, no, I mean, that's a very good question. We still have no idea who's writing all of these things down. Does Jack O'Connell's character, is he the leader of this kind of cult-like thing that a lot of people have been theorizing? Or as Anything Zombie says, could the cult be a little bit closer to Holy Island than we think? That's a very good idea. Very good question. Very good theory, too. Very good theory. Yeah, I can't wait to find out. Cannot wait to find out. We got the horror counselors in the house. What is up, the horror counselors? Here's to a fun night. Also to King Chi. Yes. The horror counselors has been actually corresponding with the alpha infected himself on Instagram, which is so freaking cool. And so cool to see that he was actually watching our stream the other night, apparently. And I'm so
Yeah.
honored, super freaking honored that the man, the myth, the alpha infected himself, the legend, Chi Lewis-Parry, has even graced us with his presence to look at our stream, even for a half of a second. It's such an honor, such an honor. So no, that was so cool. When the horror counselors pointed that out the other day on Discord and screenshotted it, and we saw Chi saying, good luck, have fun with the stream. That's so freaking cool. I mean, never in a million years would I ever have thought that he would see our small little channel. So that's so freaking cool. Yeah. So thank you for that, horror counselors. And thank you so much for the $4.99 as well. Yes, here is to a fun night and also to King Chi. Yes. Love it. Love
And
it. How
before
cool
that,
is
he
that?
said, it's so cool. So
Yeah.
cool. And that kind of always happens to you, Jeremy, where
We
you
get
will
lucky
get
sometimes.
it's the villains, right? And
Always the
which is
villain.
what I found super interesting because
Mm.
Jeremy is known as like the nicest YouTuber. Like he's super nice, super kind, but it's the villains that like watching his streams. So I
It's
find that
always the
interesting.
villains.
He also said we may stalk him. The horse
Yes.
counselor was showing me a previous message where he said, it's okay, guys, go ahead. You could stalk me. So he has given his blessing and his permission. And we're still going to be on our best behavior in case he watches this stream because
Yep.
we're huge fans of him. We love him.
Can't wait.
I'm sure that the last video that you put out with the
Mm.
thumbnail where it's just him, that's such a good thumbnail. I'm sure
Love
he's
that
going to love
photo.
that video
Ugh,
because
love it.
he's the star, really. I mean, at this point, we are kind of focusing on the father son dynamic, but it's
Yep.
the king of the infected,
Yes.
right? That we all want to know more about.
Yeah. You're 100% right. I feel like for me heading into this film, yes, I want to see Aaron Taylor Johnson's Jamie. I want to see Spike. I want to see Ray Fiennes' character, Jodie Comer, all of them, Jack O'Connell. But yeah, I am the most excited to see Cheese character 100%. Just seeing what they've been giving us of him in these trailers, and then again in this latest one, finally getting that close up look. Super scary, super imposing, super powerful. He comes across as, which is very fitting because he's a monster of a human being in real life too.
Mhm.
But no, I mean, in terms of the characters I am most looking forward to seeing, he is at the top of the list. I cannot wait to see this infected and how much of a problem he is going to be for our protagonist in the film. I am definitely looking forward to seeing him the most at this point, without a doubt. So cool. Super, super cool. But welcome everybody. We're going to dive into everything here this evening. So definitely let your thoughts and theories and predictions flow in the chat, in the comment section throughout the night. Let's see who we got in this awesome chat, shall we? We got MM in the house. What is up, MM? Looking forward to this tonight. Oh, and of course, I wanted to send a special message out to our awesome moderator, Kiwi Skirt. Won't be able to join us tonight because unfortunately her father is in the hospital, which, I mean, you know me, PM. You know I've been dealing with very similar issues. My parents are getting older. It sucks seeing that happen. But I just wanted to send thoughts and prayers out to Kiwi and her family and her father, and hope and wish for a very speedy recovery. Because there's no, I mean, it's always a tough time seeing something happen to your parents. So best of wishes, Kiwi Skirt. We're with you 100% of the way. And definitely sending my best wishes. And again, hoping for a speedy recovery for your father.
Yeah, for sure. Kiwi is so special to us. She's such a great mod. She's so dedicated.
Yeah,
We love you, Kiwi. We're sending you positive energy and love. Um, and yeah, like you stated, the channel is all about family, right?
all about family.
So we totally understand that, and we hope that that situation improves for you.
Indeed. Indeed, yeah. I mean, there's at the end of the day, there's nothing more important on this little blue and green earth than family. Family is the one thing you cannot replace. It's the one thing that has the most meaning to me personally. I grew up very family oriented in an Italian household like this. You become very family oriented. But yeah, it's always tough, seeing your parents get a little bit older. I'm right there with you, Kiwi. My parents are getting up there in years too, and you hate to see that happen. They get a little bit slower, they start breaking down, and it sucks. I know it's a part of nature, but it doesn't make it any less easy. It doesn't make it any more easy. So yes, thoughts and prayers are with you, and absolutely, if you need anything, you can reach out to us anytime at all. So I hope for a speedy recovery. Let's see, we got Pablo in the house. What is up, Pablo? Have a great weekend, everyone. Yes, I hope everybody is enjoying their weekend. I hope everybody did enjoy their weekend and is enjoying their Sunday night. And for anybody who choose to hang out with us here for a little bit on this fine Sunday evening, we very much appreciate you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We got the Real Prince in the house, the Rage Zone. Yes, the Rage Zone is here, guys. The Rage Zone is live. And speaking of the Rage Zone, I did want to highlight this because our friend, the Horror Counselors, whipped up a pretty cool custom logo for the Rage Zone live streams. And I couldn't help. I had to throw it in the thumbnail for this stream because it's super cool. But definitely want to give another shout out to the Horror Counselors for whipping up this super cool custom little logo for our live streams here called the Infected Zone. Not one, but two awesome logos that he whipped up. Love this. Absolutely love this. I love this one too. This one might be my favorite, actually. I love the black background. I feel like it's got a really good contrast. It pops really well. The blood spatter. I mean, it definitely looks very professionally made. So, I mean, in terms of graphic design, my friend, you got some skills. You got some skills in graphic design. This is very impressive. If you would have told me this was professionally made, I wouldn't have bat an eye. It looks super well done. So thank you for this. I'm going to put this on all of our thumbnails for our live streams for sure.
Oh yeah, and the horse counselor, you are standing out. We love the entire chat, of course. We love all of you.
Awesome.
But
Absolutely.
the horrors counselor is putting in the work. He's
Loving it.
getting the live stream out. He's making thumbnails. We love that. We
Yeah.
love that for you. Iconic.
Super
We have
iconic.
been messaging back and forth on Discord. So if you guys haven't joined Jeremy's Discord, join the Discord because we're talking basically 24/7.
Yeah.
He and I have been talking all day and yesterday too.
Awesome.
You could talk about different shows, so it's not just the
Yes.
28 years later, but there's different channels. If you're into From, of course, we have the Fromily in there, and
Yeah.
the Fromily has it's still active. It's super
I
active. I go in
know.
there every day, and
I
every day there's a new
know.
theory.
I love that. And that's one thing that about the From community that I'm finding the 28 years later community is also super cool, just like the From community. I think those two communities would get along super, super well. But yeah, I mean, it's awesome to see that the From discussion is starting up again. And now that we're getting closer to season 4 starting filming, we're seeing the theory crafting come back around. And yeah, our Fromville channel in the Discord has been super active lately. Love seeing that. And yeah, I love seeing all discussions all around 28 years later as well. I mean, that is what the Discord is for. For whenever we're not live or for whenever there's not any videos that we're putting out, there's always something or someone to talk with in the Discord. And that's what it's for. It's, a place where we can all just hang out and talk about our favorite films and TV shows. So yeah, super thankful to everybody who has been contributing in the conversation here and in the Discord as well. I'm super thankful. Super thankful. Yeah, awesome. And again, big thank you to the horror counselors for whipping up these awesome logos for our streams. Again, I love both of these. Love both of them. So well done, my friend. Well done. I mean, I just can't believe it. We're getting closer and closer now, guys. We are getting super close. We are less than 3 weeks away from 28 years later, 19 days or so from now. We will be actually watching this film. And I love that. I absolutely love that. And I recently saw today that they have just started showing previews of the first 28 minutes of 28 years later. They're showing a little sneak preview, not giving everything away, but they're showing select previews to certain people, showing them the first 28 minutes of the film. And it's getting glowing reviews. People are saying if the rest of the film is this intense, this is going to be one of the craziest films we've seen in years. People are loving the previews that they're getting of this film. So even early reviews wise, it's looking like this film is off to a phenomenal start. And we knew it. I think all of us, 28 days and 28 weeks and 28 years later, die-hard fans, we knew and we know that this film is going to be freaking kick-ass. But it's nice to know that even, a general audience is really taking to it already. We're going to love it. But it seems like everybody is loving what they're seeing so far in terms of early sneak previews. So love that. Love that.
Mm-hmm. And it's the attention to detail.
Yeah.
It's the marketing, the attention to detail, and even in the preview. It's not 29 minutes or 30. It's only 28 minutes of the film for 28 years later,
Yeah.
right? They are paying such attention to detail because we do
Yeah.
too. And I love when directors, writers, producers do this sort of thing because we pay attention to detail. And so you always feel like you are rewarded in being part of that fandom when they give that back to you, right? With the marketing or
Yeah.
with what they're including in the film. So I love that. And I do see that the chat is asking if this is something that we're going to watch in the movie theater. And of course, right? We've talked about how
Absolutely.
we don't usually go, but
No.
for this one, yeah. I mean, you have to.
Yeah, you got to. And very much, PM and I, we don't frequent the movie theater very often. It's just not something I do. I wait for it to come out on streaming service or I'll purchase it on demand or something. Very rarely do I ever go to the theater these days. It has to be a really special film to get me into the movie theater. I think the last time I went to the theater was for Dune Part 1 when the first Dune came out a few years ago. I'm a huge Dune fan. I love the Dune books. I've been a huge fan of that franchise for a very long time. So I was looking forward to seeing what Denis Villeneuve, his iteration of Dune was going to be like. So that was the only film that made me a little bit excited to actually go to the theater. Haven't even been to the theater since then. This one, there's no chance I'm missing this one in theaters. I am going right to theaters. And I can't wait. This is one of those films that I feel like it would be a disservice if I didn't see it on the big screen. I mean, I imagine it's going to be great no matter which format you watch it on, but a movie like this hell yes, I am definitely going into theaters to see this. 100%. I'll probably go into theaters and see it multiple times, actually. I probably won't see it just once. I mean, I'll be doing tons of reviews on it once it comes out. We'll be putting out tons of videos on it. We'll be live streaming about it the whole time. So at the very least, anytime I like to break things down, I always like to watch them multiple times so I can really get a real feel for what this film is, what they're trying to tell us, the message behind the film, the deeper meanings. And to do that, you kind of need to see these things more than once. So I'll, at the very least, be going to see it in the theaters probably 2 or 3 times, to be honest.
Now that's dedication. That's the
Absolutely.
dedication that we love from Mr. Jeremy Eisenfire.
Well, it's fun. It's a job, but it is also fun as well. I love covering these things, love diving into them with everybody. And yeah, this is definitely a film that is theater worthy, 100%. So yeah, we'll be there. We shall be there. And once it does start to come out on digital, I'm sure at some point we'll do a live watch party of it directly in our Discord. That's another thing we do in the Discord every once in a while as well. We do live watch parties, whether it's for the TV shows that we're watching or covering at any given time, or movies that we're all looking forward to. This is definitely a film that we will be doing a live watch party for in our Discord when we have a digital version available. Absolutely. So yeah, go see it in theaters and then come see it again with us live in the Discord, and we will dive into it together. Should be fun. Can't wait. Cannot wait. Bring on the rage, says Big Dago. Yes, bring on the rage. The rage is coming, guys. The rage is less than 3 weeks away now, and it will be here. Just make sure you don't get infected. You're gonna want to enjoy that whole film before you succumb to the rage virus. We got House Dane in the house. Welcome, House Dane. We got Ronan72. Welcome, welcome, Ronan. Good to see you as well. Horror Counselor, the Queen in the house. Yes. Awesome stuff. Welcome, welcome, my friend. Good to have you. Good to have you. And yes, Danny Boyle currently in New York with Aaron Taylor Johnson and Jodie Comer for the fan event. The first 28 minutes will be shown. Yeah, that's so awesome. It looks like they showed the first 28 minutes of the film. And here we have someone who was lucky enough to attend the event. And says, watch the first 28 minutes of 28 Years Later. If the rest of the movie is this good, it's a certified banger here. Immediately thrown back into the brutal world with all of its artistic grit, rage, and a roster of intriguing new characters. Excellent hook into a new story. And that's what you want. This is exactly the kind of review you want to hear for the first film, especially considering we're not just getting one, we're getting a whole trilogy. So you want this first film to really grab people and get them super invested in this new generation of characters. I know everybody definitely wants to see Cillian Murphy's Jim again, and we reportedly will see him at some point in the trilogy, probably not till the end, second or third movie, I'm guessing. But I am just as much looking forward to these new characters, this new generation of characters that we're getting, whether it's Aaron Taylor Johnson's Jamie, Spike, Ray Fiennes' character, Dr. Kelson, the Alpha infected himself. I cannot wait to get a feel for who these newer characters are, because these are the characters we're going to be following over this new trilogy. So it's awesome to know that it's off to a good start and people are already really enjoying the preview that they've been seeing. So I can't wait. I can't wait to dive into and learn a little bit more about these characters.
Oh, for sure. And we were rewatching 28 days later. We
Yeah,
did a
just the other
rewatch,
night. Yeah.
Just Jeremy and I. And something that was just groundbreaking when the movie first came out back then was that while there was rage infected people, right? Because they're not zombies. We call them zombies, but they're not undead. They
Even
definitely
Cillian Murphy calls
were.
them zombies. So it's
Yeah,
allowed. Yeah.
yeah. But technically, they're not undead. So there was a lot of hope. When you are watching the movie, you're watching the bodies of these people that are infected kind of passing away because they have been without food,
Yes.
without water, right? And so there was a lot of hope that with time, the virus would contain itself and everything would be
Yeah.
okay. And while we were watching, you get all of this hope that things just might end up working out. But now that 28 years later, there's still people that are infected with the rage virus. Nothing is better. Nothing is back to normal. People are still living a very primitive life. It, it's kind of a feeling of despair. So I'm interested in knowing how is it that they're going to carry out that feeling of hope and courage that the first film had, when now we know that it doesn't matter if decades go by, the virus is still around. So how are they going to maintain us hopeful, right?
Yeah.
Or willing to buy into the new characters?
Yeah, it's a very good point. Very good point. Because yeah, I mean, you watch that first film, and yeah, you're led to believe that these things are going to die out eventually. They're going to starve to death eventually. And yes, now here we are, 28 years later, and they are still going and going strong by the looks of it. At least in some cases, especially with this big alpha infected. Very much doesn't look like he's missed a meal. And we hear Alex Garland talk a little bit about that in some of the behind the scenes feature. Exactly. Time didn't heal anything. Perfect tagline for this film, because they thought it would. They thought time would heal this. Time would kill this virus off. But perfect. Time didn't heal shit. And we're seeing that. And we're seeing even Alex Garland kind of touch on that a little bit in one of the behind the scenes features they put out a month ago. And he talks about how as you mentioned, these are living, breathing humans infected with the rage virus. They are not undead zombies that have died and come back to life. They're living, breathing people. And that dictates a few things. That means they need to drink, they need to eat, they need sustenance to live. And if they have survived a period of time of 28 years, then that means they have evolved and adapted to the point where they have found a very steady source of food, a steady source of sustenance. And I think we're seeing some small hints of that in some of the trailers when we see some of these deers that have the severed head and look like the rest of them were just completely devoured. It looks like they are even feeding off humans and the wildlife alike, and they have found a way to sustain themselves because of it. And Alex Garland even talks about them, if they were to survive this long, what would they be similar to in the animal kingdom? So I definitely get the feeling we're going to see a very animalistic kind of infected that we haven't seen before in any of the previous films. And a lot of people have pointed to them kind of devolving back into a primate-like state. And I think that makes perfect sense. I think it ties it all the way back to the original 28 Days Later, considering this whole rage virus started with chimpanzees. I think it makes perfect sense to see the infected nowadays have kind of evolved or devolved back into that kind of Neanderthal state where they're a little bit more primitive, a little bit more primate-like, and that's how they've been surviving. So I can't wait to see what they really look like after all these decades. How have they really evolved? How have they really adapted? That's what I want to see.
Hmm. Exactly, right? We have so many questions,
Yeah.
especially now that we know that there's the king of the infected and he's functioning at a level that we have never seen before, right? We definitely, at this point, we all know that he is way more intelligent than the rest and he's planning and strategizing. But Bato from the astral plane, love the name, by the way. So cool. Um, Time didn't heal anything. When I think about that and the fact that they used that tagline to advertise the movie, and now that we
Yeah.
did the rewatch of the original, it makes me think about the different ways that time didn't heal anything. It's not just about the infected. When you watch the original, it's very much about the humans that are left behind, the ones that
Yes.
survive. What type
Yeah.
of human beings are they, right? And I think that this could have double meaning. Not only did it not heal the virus, but it also didn't heal the people. We
Yeah.
know that in this new movie, it's not just the infected that you have to worry about. Apparently there's a cult, right? Apparently there are people, because we see that there is a person left for the infected hanging upside down, just
Yeah.
with a bag over his head. Super cruel. That's something that human beings did. And they say there are strange people in the mainland. So
Yes.
time didn't heal humans as well as the virus.
Hmm. And that's perfect, right? I feel like that's a perfect kind of dichotomy there, where yes, nothing has healed. Time does not heal all wounds, apparently. Where yes, not only has the virus managed to sustain itself, and not only has that not healed, but yeah, that's a perfect point as well. Even humanity hasn't healed. It seems like humanity has gotten worse and worse and worse over these years, over these decades as well, to the point where even parts of humanity have kind of devolved into a more primitive like state. And like you said, we get that great line from Jamie in that 5 minute preview when he states there are strange people living on the mainland, which I think is going to be a huge part of this film. I get the feeling the human threat in 28 years later is going to be just as prevalent as the threat of the infected, maybe even more so. Sometimes it comes down to the human threat being an even bigger threat, like 28 days later. 28 the first film is a perfect example of that, where you see Jim in particular doing everything he can to avoid getting infected for the entire film, to avoid becoming like the rage infected victims, only to see him become incredibly savage by the end of the film, and come close to losing that said humanity. And then we see all of these other soldiers who have lost their humanity in the worst possible way. So you see that it's not just the infected that are devolving. We're seeing humanity devolve into a place where their more kind of baser instincts are being brought to the surface. And we see that sometimes humanity is the ultimate threat, not the infected.
Exactly. And we were having a discussion about this, but the people that are infected with the virus, whether you call them zombies or the infected, they only want to kill you. That's all. I mean, it's a big deal, of course, but
Yeah,
all the worst that is going to happen is that it's going to be a quick death if they happen to catch you, because
yeah,
that's just how they function, right? They have rage. It's going to be quick. If they catch you, they're super fast. But the humans that are left behind, the humans that survive, have survived because they have done some things. If the humans get you, they don't just want to kill you. It's not enough. They want to make you
yes.
suffer. They want to use you in some way, or they
Enslave
want
you.
to enslave you. So when you look at it that way, at times it's better to be captured by the rage infected humans than by the humans that are healthy, because you just don't know what their intentions are with you.
Yeah. No, and that's actually a really good point. I mean, yes, when you get caught by these rage virus victims, the worst thing that's going to happen to you is you get killed or you get turned into another rage infected victim. But if the worst of humanity, like the soldiers at the end of 28 days later, if they get a hold of you, it's going to your suffering is going to be way more. I mean, we saw what they were doing to to the women in particular at the end of the film, way darker than anything that the rage virus victims would have done to them. It would have been a quick death. It would have been a brutal death, yes, but when the darker aspects of humanity come out to the surface, that is usually a worse fate than the infection itself. And that's one thing that 28 days later showcases beautifully, that moments like this, post-apocalyptic worlds like this, they can bring out the very best in humanity sometimes, like it does in Jim. We see, like you were talking about this the other night, where Jim gets to that one point where he escapes. He gets over the wall and he's free. He could have just completely taken off and been home clear. But he doesn't. He turns back around because he wants to come and rescue them. He wants to rescue the two people that he was with. So worlds like this can bring out the very best of humanity sometimes, but more often than not, it can bring out the very worst of what humans are capable of. And that's what we see from the soldiers in 28 days later. And I do get the feeling we're going to see a similar dichotomy in 28 years later, where I wouldn't be surprised if humanity ends up being the ultimate threat in this trilogy, not just the infected, without a doubt.
Oh yeah. Oh
And
yeah,
yeah,
for
Danny
sure.
Boyle, yeah. And Danny Boyle did recently say it's not going to go the way people are thinking. And I love that. I mean, and if anyone can pull off something where nobody saw this coming, it's Danny Boyle and Alex Garland. Knowing that they have teamed up again to bring us 28 years later, especially with Alex Garland's brilliant writing and Danny Boyle's brilliant directing, two of my favorites in the business. I love that. I love that Danny Boyle is already kind of confident in the fact where, even though everybody has been theorizing about this film for months and have been coming up with some of the most extensive, brilliant theories, he's still confident that this film is going to blow people away, and it's going to be one of those things where none of us saw it coming. It's not going to go the way we think. I love that feeling because I want to be surprised watching this. I don't want to know what's coming.
Mhm.
I want that big shock value and that big kind of, holy shit, I did not expect it to go that way. That's the feeling I want when I watch this film. So the fact that Danny Boyle is still confident that that's how it's going to go, love that. Love that.
Mhm. And he's somebody that you can trust. Danny
Yeah.
Boyle is somebody that you can trust when he tells you this is going to be great. It's not going to be what you're thinking. I do feel like we could put our trust in him. We were talking about zombie fatigue, even though they're not zombies, right? We have had so many shows and movies in
Mhm.
the recent years that have been zombie focused, that at this point you would think we're kind of over the zombies. But when
Yeah.
they're making promises like this, I think that they're going to be able to carry out a story where the twist might be that the zombies are not the problem, especially if there's a cult and he's saying there's strange people in the mainland. The twist might be that we even forget that the zombies are an issue because the people themselves are such a big problem.
Yeah.
And like you told us in the last live stream, the actor that is playing, well, we don't know what he's playing, right? We're thinking that he's going to be Jimmy, but the one that was in Sinners, he said
Jack
this is the
O'Connell. Yeah.
darkest, yeah, the darkest role he's ever played.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that he's not an infected person, he's a survivor, a
Mhm.
human.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that's the direction that it might be headed.
I think so. I mean, and that was very interesting to hear the actor say that last week, where he did state that he thinks that his role in 28 Years Later may be the darkest role he's ever played. And he's coming off being the main villain in Sinners. So I like that. That makes it very intriguing. And the fact that we haven't seen any footage of Jack O'Connell's character in any of the trailers makes it even more intriguing. Why are they keeping his character so secretive? What kind of role is Jack O'Connell's character going to be playing in this film that it's so much of a secret that they can't show him in any of the trailers? That's what has me super intrigued, because and I love the way that these trailers are formatted in general. I mean, I feel like these trailers haven't given away too much in terms of what the actual plot is going to be about. We know basic details in terms of synopsis and some things that are going to happen in the film, but how this whole thing is going to play out, none of us know. And I love that. And we've talked about this in the past, and ad nauseum, I feel, where sometimes Hollywood will put way too much into trailers. They'll put the whole freaking movie in a trailer, and then by the time you watch it, every exciting part of that film you've already seen in the trailer. And I love how 28 Years Later seem to be doing a little bit differently, where they're giving us super intriguing trailers, don't get me wrong, but especially those first two trailers that came out, I mean, we still had really no idea what this film was about. Ever since then, more information has come out, so we're starting to get a better picture now of what the film might be about. But I love the original marketing for this movie in particular, because those first two main trailers that dropped, they did the perfect job of incredibly hyping you up for this film while not giving away too much at the same time. So yeah, I think Jack O'Connell's character is going to be very intriguing. If they're keeping him this secretive, this much under wraps, then yeah, who knows? And even as the horror counselors brings up, what if Jack O'Connell's character is actually on Holy Island? There's no evidence to suggest otherwise. Yeah, we really have no evidence one way or the other, right? I mean, that is a good point. I think all of us are just assuming that he's going to be part of the mainland, and he might be this kind of cult-like leader, which has been a pretty big fan theory up until this point. But we don't know. We really have no idea at the end of the day. So Jack O'Connell's character being part of Holy Island, I suppose that's just as plausible as anything else up
Mhm.
until this point.
Oh, for sure. I really like that idea. And I completely agree. I like that they're not telling us that we don't
Yeah,
know. And I don't want to know, right? I
me too.
want maybe another trailer, but I don't want to know more. It's a lot of fun to theorize. And speaking of theories, I'm loving that the Rage Zone and the chat is giving us all of their ideas for the plot twist. Like, if they're saying that this is not going to go the way we think, what is the plot twist? I do
Mm.
see in the chat they're saying maybe the plot twist is that the zombies are not even upset anymore, and they just behave like chill people, which I like. At this point, it's been 28 years, so maybe they're exhausted at this point.
Very true. Very true. And yeah, as Rona points out, are we even 100% sure there is a cult? I mean, really, no. I mean, we're really not 100% sure. I mean, there's been some hints and some little, signs that there could be some kind of cult-like mentality, cult-like behavior going on. But in terms of like actually knowing, yeah, we really don't know. I mean, we might get thrown for an entire loop where there's really little to no cult activity in this film at all. So, yeah, I mean, nothing is guaranteed. There's been no definitive information that has come out that has said, yes, there's definitely cult-like activity in this film. There's nothing to go on other than what we're seeing in the trailer and some really good hints and theories and rumors. But yeah, plot twist: zombies are the good guys.
I like that.
Love that.
Yeah, that's where I'm thinking that it's gonna go, right?
Mhm.
Because in every other zombie show that we have seen, it is so focused on the zombies, right? I
Yes.
mean, you get a couple of people here and there that are not super great, but it's 100% focused on that. I'm
Mhm.
thinking death movers that you might be right. That might be our answer. It turns out that the zombies are just animals at the end of the day. I like
Yeah.
that they're speaking about them in a way where they're saying they're basically reverting to their animal form. If humans can't speak, if they're infected, if they're not civilized, then they're just in their animal form. And we have a lot of animals in the world now that can completely destroy us, but we don't see them as a threat, right? They could kill us, but they're not a threat unless we get close to them. So it might be something like that.
Maybe, maybe, and yeah, I mean, if anything about Danny Boyle's past work is to be considered, then yes, there's going to be some kind of twist in this film that we are not going to see coming. I'm very confident of that. I definitely don't think that this is going to be one of those films that we go into the theater and it plays out exactly how we thought it was going to play out. There's going to be some twists. There's going to be some turns. There's going to be some Alex Garland, Danny Boyle isms in there, and that's what I want to see. I don't want to know everything that's coming. I want a nice big twist that makes sense, a twist that's really good, that fits well within the narrative, that also sets up the next film. And that's what's going to be fun, seeing how this first one ends. There's been a lot of talk as to whether or not Aaron Taylor Johnson's character is going to survive this first film. There's been some really good conversations around that. But yeah, I mean, I feel like this is, again, I'm very confident that this is going to be the best horror film that has come out in a very, very long time. I think this is going to blow everything else completely out of the water. And I'm for it. I am all for it. But yeah, let's take a look at some of your ideas, guys. Let's take a look at some of your theories here in the chat. What are you guys looking forward to for 28 years later? What are some of your biggest theories, your biggest predictions? What do you guys think is going to happen in this film? Let us know. Let us know. I heard some claim that the vicar was family to the boy Jimmy. He talks to him. It's a glorious day, a day of judgment. It's a pet of what radicalizes him into the cult practices. I've been hearing this theory as well to the Cosmic Firestar, and I think it's a pretty interesting one. Yes, we see that priest in the trailer, and it looks like that very much is a flashback to the day of the outbreak. But we also get that other flashback to the day of the outbreak, the Teletubby scene, the Teletubby massacre, as fans have been dubbing it, which is great. And it also looks like in that scene, we see a young version of Jimmy. And when you when you pause it on that scene and take a look at the child actor that's supposed to be Jimmy, I mean, he's got same hair. He's got very similar features to Jack O'Connell. So I very much, at first, I thought that was a young Jamie, that maybe we were seeing Jamie as a child when the outbreak broke out. Now I'm starting to think that was a young Jack O'Connell's character, a young Jimmy, not a young Jamie. And yes, I mean, could there even be some other ties there where young Jimmy, maybe his father was that priest? I think that's a very, very interesting possibility. And I have heard a lot of people talking about this lately. So it definitely seems to be an idea and a theory that seems to be gaining some steam among the fandom, where people think Jimmy is tied to this priest in some manner. And yes, that could be what radicalizes him into that cult-like mentality. I think that's a very interesting theory.
I like it. The Cosmic Firestar, also a great username. Um, I like it, and I agree with you, Jeremy. I think he's in the Teletubby massacre. I think he
Yep.
is the child from the Teletubby massacre. Now,
Mhm.
in what way may he be connected to the vicar in the church? I would have to say it would have to be a way where it's not super close, so not like a father or uncle, because as we see, the father in the church gathers his congregation. And you see all sorts of people, young, old. He gathers the congregation so that they could be preyed upon by the infected. So if he was a close family member of his or a son, you would assume that he also had his son with him at the point of the gathering,
Yeah.
where the infected prey upon just about everybody, including him. So
Mhm.
perhaps, but it would have to be a distant connection if he survived.
Could be. Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it could be maybe that he was, a member of that parish. Maybe he used to attend church there. Maybe his family was a member of that congregation potentially. But no, I think that's an interesting idea that there might be some kind of connection there, and that maybe that is how he was kind of radicalized into this way of thinking 28 years later, where now he's grown up and he has those same kind of ideals instilled in him, but only cranked up to 100 because you're in this post-apocalyptic setting where the rules are much different now. So no, I think that's a very interesting idea. I think it's a very interesting idea. Cool theory. Cool theory. My question is, how many infected are there? The film takes place in Upper England, but what about Wales, Scotland? I think a TV show could explore the rest of the country. That could be very interesting. I mean, we do get that small little title crawl in the 5-minute preview that was recently released, and it says that they were able to kind of beat back the infection, apparently, because we do see at the end of 28 weeks, which I know it's been up in the air in terms of how much they're going to canonize 28 weeks later in this trilogy. But it seems like they're not going to directly contradict anything that happened in 28 weeks either. But it looks like the virus did start to kind of spread into other parts of the UK, but it seems like they were able to beat it back. They were able to beat it back and then quarantine Britain, pretty much is what it looks like based on that title crawl anyway. But that definitely leaves those questions up in the air. What about Wales? What about Scotland? What about Paris? I mean, we saw in weeks in particular, the virus had even reached Paris. So no, I think that could be a very interesting idea. If they don't fully address it in this film, then yeah, that could be something that might be worth exploring in a spin-off series or a spin-off film. I mean, I'll take all the 28 years later we can get at this point, especially if it's going to be this good. So no, I think that's an interesting idea. How has the rest of the world fared? Not just the rest of that continent, but how has the rest of the world fared? I always thought it was a very interesting idea because usually when you get something like this, it happens to the entire planet. It always happens to the entire planet. The whole world ends up getting ravaged, whether it's Walking Dead, Resident Evil, The Last of Us. It's always usually the whole world that gets decimated. But this is very unique. This is doing something different than we've ever seen, where the infection, the quarantine, the outbreak is contained to the UK only. And that offers some interesting possibilities. And it also, asks up some interesting questions as well. Like, is NATO still involved? Is NATO still keeping an eye on the UK, trying to keep this quarantine in place? And if so, why haven't they just evacuated everybody? That's one thing I've always wondered. If the rest of the world is okay, why are there even still people living in here? How come they haven't gotten evacuated? I hope they at least touch on that and give us some kind of explanation. Because if the rest of the world is fine, it stands to reason they would be able to kind of enact some kind of, rescue, some kind of evacuation for the people that are still in there if the rest of the world is fine. So I wonder if they're going to touch on that, how the rest of the world is faring and how the rest of the world views this part of the UK.
Very interesting. Very interesting. And you and I were discussing how we love that this is based on the UK, that this is European, because a lot of the, like zombie movies or zombie shows, it's based in the US, right?
Yeah,
But this is really
it's different.
interesting because you get to see different places affected, like when we see London in the first movie and all of the bodies, right? So very beautiful locations. And yes, my question is why, if the US is okay, they would be who would get involved because of treaties that we have made to assist and collaborate with the UK. They would get involved with helping people evacuate.
You would
If
think.
they're not doing so, why are they not doing so?
Mhm.
Unless the US is also infected.
Interesting. Now, wouldn't that be an interesting reveal if we find out in this film that 28 years later, we're all just assuming that it's contained to the UK, but really the whole fucking world is ravaged at this point? That would be an interesting twist that I think a lot of us didn't expect coming. Or is it just one of those things where they just don't want to risk it? I mean, we saw what happened in 28 weeks later, where they thought they had a handle on it. They thought they had this whole thing beat back. They thought they had it completely cleared. Even so much where NATO started bringing people back into the UK. They started letting people come back home. And then boom, another outbreak happened because we found a carrier, someone who was immune to the virus but could still spread it, Don's wife, Alice. So that's always made me wonder, maybe that's a potential answer. Like, is it one of those things where they just don't want to even risk trying to get people out of the UK because they don't want to risk the small possibility of the rage virus escaping the quarantine? Maybe that's the reason.
I like it. I think that that would explain a lot. It seems super inhumane, but that would explain a lot. What I would prefer is to see that the entire world has been infected with this virus.
Hmm.
We do know that in the first movie, they touch on what people that are wealthy do, right? The wealthy will use their money to get out of the country if there is something that is happening. And so they do touch on that, where there is a character that mentions that his parents had a lot of money and they tried to pay somebody to fly them out of the country because of the virus. So I'm wondering if you get somebody potentially infected, the only problem is that it's so quick. It takes only 28 seconds. Was it 28 seconds
10 to
for the
20 seconds.
virus?
You know.
Yeah, so there's no way that you could be in a flight unless it's something like you mentioned where you're carrying the virus and you just are not showing the symptoms of the rage virus.
Mhm.
So when you look at it that way, that's how we could get an infection in other countries that have not been affected by the virus.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, we saw the devastation it did in 28 weeks. I mean, they really thought they had a handle on everything, and then boom, you come across one person that's an immune carrier, passes it on to his husband, and then Don goes on a fucking rampage and just passes it on to everybody. And next thing you know, the whole place needs to get completely carpet bombed in order for them to contain it, which still didn't contain it. It still escaped even after the giant carpet bomb. So yeah, it could just be one of those things where maybe they just don't want to risk it. They just think it's too big of a risk to try and act some kind of evacuation, because if even a small drop of this gets out of the quarantine, this could happen to the entire world. But I also like your idea. I would love that if at like the end of the film we saw like a post-credit scene that showed like America and the rest of the world starting to fall, where maybe it did get out in some manner. I think that would be a super cool Easter egg to set up the rest of the films, the Bone Temple and the third film. So yeah, I like that. I think that's interesting. Very interesting stuff, guys. All right, let's see what else you guys are saying. Scrolling down, let me scroll down a little bit here. Yeah, maybe the mainland is free and the island is revealed to be a terrible place of control. Very well could be. Very well could be. Ironically, I think 28 Days was probably responsible in a way for our current zombie fatigue, because I think it's the movie that jump started the revival and subsequent saturation of zombie media. And I think you have definitely a good point there. I think you have a good point there, because yes, 28 Days Later completely elevated the genre, whether it's the zombie genre, the infected genre, the post-apocalyptic genre. I mean, it had gone a little bit stale until 28 Days Later came out. 28 Days completely revolutionized what a quote unquote zombie movie could be, or what an infected movie could be. Completely changed the game, completely changed the rules. We got for the first time super dangerous, strong, scary, super fast infected, which we hadn't really seen a whole lot of before 28 Days Later. So yes, that very much did. I 100% agree with you. That very much did jumpstart the very beginning of this new infected wave becoming super popular in mainstream pop culture. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think you could probably trace its origins all the way back to that. Yeah, absolutely. It really did. It completely kicked the doors open in terms of what this genre could look like.
Yeah, but it was great, right? So it was
Great.
different. It was great. The zombies were fast, and they're not really zombies because they're still alive. And we have, at least at the time, an indication that they would die off.
Yeah.
I would say the zombie fatigue peaked with The Last of Us because it was
Mhm.
so bad. At that point, it's where you're like, you know what? I don't want to watch any more of The Last of Us.
No,
It's so bad. It's
we
like a
tried.
slow night. So it's not problematic when it's good. You can
Mhm.
redo the same theme over and over if it's good, if it's a good storyline. But when it is just as bad as The Last of Us, then it's when you say, well, I'm probably okay with not watching zombie theme things for a little while, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, you can definitely understand an oversaturation of certain genres and certain kind of themes. I mean, and I think we've seen this happen over the years. You look back to the vampire craze that was going on. Like the vampire movies and vampire shows were literally everywhere you looked. You had freaking Twilight, you had True Blood, you had Vampire Diaries, Originals, all these vampire shows, all this vampire media. It got to a point where it was just complete oversaturation, and not a lot of them are good. You know, some of them were good, but not a lot of them were good. True Blood was good, but you know, for me, Twilight was abysmal. I couldn't even get through those movies; they were horrible. But that's just me personally. I just didn't really like them. But yeah, now we're seeing something similar now, where it does feel like, at least this year in particular, it feels like it's the the year of the zombie, or the year of the infected, you could say, because yeah, you have all of this stuff coming out again nowadays. You have all of these Walking Dead spin-offs coming out. You have The Last of Us, as you mentioned. Now we have 28 Years Later is getting its revival. It definitely seems like we're heading back into that area where we're going to start seeing a lot of infected genre television and shows and movies. And even more so if this does really well. When 28 Years Later comes out, if it does incredibly well in the box office and it has good, and it has good reviews and it's received well, best believe you're going to see tons of studios jumping on this bandwagon, where we're going to start seeing a ton of infected style films and TV shows coming out. And this is how it happens. You have one good thing that comes out that kicks it off, that jump starts it. And the next thing you know, 5-10 years later, you have a complete oversaturation. So I guess that'll be interesting to see when 28 Years Later does eventually come out in a few weeks. And if it is incredibly good, which I definitely think it's going to be, it looks like it's going to be phenomenal. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing a new wave of tons of infected zombie style shows coming out and movies.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And one thing that I do like about, for example, this shot that you have on the screen is that these zombies look realistic, right?
Yes.
So, and once again, they're not zombies. They're real people who have been starving, who are infected. So their body is showing the signs of a body that is going through an infection of this magnitude. A lot of them, their hair, like you see on the screen, the people in the background, they're missing patches of hair. They're very thin. They're unclothed because they wouldn't have clothes at this point. It's 28 years later. Everything has disintegrated. We do get that iconic shot of what a body would look like when you are just sustaining life without actually getting any nutrients. So somehow they have managed to figure out what they can eat to sustain life, but clearly it's not enough. It's not a healthy body. I remember when we first saw that, we thought it was Jimmy because of the
People thought it
resemblance.
was Jim. Yeah, people thought it was Jim. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was just, the angle of the shot, everyone was like, oh shit, Jim's a freaking infected. And as soon as I saw it, and I kind of knew it wasn't, um, but I totally understand why people thought it was. I mean, it had a little bit of that similar features to Cillian Murphy's face. But, something that big is never going to get revealed in a trailer. So that's kind of what threw me off. And then you have the actor himself that kind of came out in social media like a week later. And confirmed that it was him that was in the trailer. I guess he's a British art dealer / actor, and he did a side-by-side photo comparison of the shot in 28 Years Later and him. It's like, oh, okay, all right, that's not Cillian Murphy. This is someone else. But yeah, no, in terms of like being realistic, you're 100% right. If these rage virus infected victims have survived for the course of 28 years, that's a very long time. This is what they would look like. This is definitely what they would look like. They would be skinny. They would be malnourished. They would be super dirty. As you mentioned, patches of hair just gone. Their clothes just completely worn and in tatters. It's not like they're out there changing their pants every day. So I love the realism that we're getting with these infected 28 years later. They're looking exactly how they would really look if something like this happened over the course of a 2-3 decade period. This is what they would look like. They would look like a complete freaking mess like this. So I love that added layer of realism. And as you mentioned, it's that attention to detail that makes 28 years later better than any other zombie or infected thing we're going to get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. And the chat has great questions. Why hasn't his hair grown? And I think that this is where
True.
we're going to get the information as to how the virus has mutated. In
Mm.
what ways does it affect the body? And in what ways has it stopped affecting the body to the point where they can function, they can think, they can strategize?
Very true. Very true. We have no idea how much this thing or how this thing has adapted and evolved over the 28-year period. And we really don't know what the rage virus does to a human body over an extended period of time. Up until this point, we've only had 28 days later and 28 weeks later. Both is a relatively short time in terms of evolution, in terms of adaptation, in terms of nature adapting something. That's not going to happen in 28 days. That's not going to happen in 28 weeks. 28 years, though, that is a little bit different. You will see things start to adapt. You will see things start to evolve over a 3-decade period. So I think that's going to be interesting. We have no idea what the prolonged effects do on the human body for having the rage virus in it for that long. We just have no idea what the long-term effects are going to be on these creatures. But we do hear Danny Boyle state that these creatures in 28 years later are quote unquote extraordinary creatures. And I think based on some of the shots we're seeing in some of these trailers, they definitely look very extraordinary. I mean, case in point, look at the freaking alpha. The dude's a beast, an absolute freaking beast. And not just is he a beast, but he's smart too. He seems to have a degree of intelligence that might be even greater than anything we've seen in the previous films, even greater than Dawn's intelligence in the second film. So yeah, I think we're going to see that the rage virus has evolved in some very unique ways over the decades.
hmm And talking about the king of the infected, in your last video, you presented a really good question, which I'm interested in to know what the chat thinks.
Mm,
Um, is there one king of the
yes.
infected, or is this two people? Because you're showing one on the screen that I'm just not convinced is the same one
Yes.
from the other shot, right?
Yep.
So in that video, you presented that question. I think it's just one. But what do you guys think in the chat? Is this two different people or is
Hmm.
it just one?
Yes. What do you guys think? Please sound off because there's been a lot of really good discussion around this in our comment section ever since I put that video out. Because I mean, I always thought that it was just one main alpha infected. But after we got this latest TV spot, we got a really good close up glimpse of Chi. Now I'm not so sure. Now I'm not 100% sure, especially, and that's why I wanted to do this little close-up kind of side-by-side comparison so people could really kind of see. I mean, yes, the lighting is different here. The camera angle is different here. So you could attribute red eyes here and not so red eyes here. It could just be as simple as the lighting or a camera flare or a lens flare. But who knows? I mean, now I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure if it's just going to be one massive alpha infected or whether or not we're going to get more than one. And it's been so interesting to see the comments and the discussion developing around this because just based on our comment sections alone, it seems like anytime people are talking about this, they're kind of split down the middle where some people think there's going to be just one alpha, and some people think there's going to be two or even multiple alpha kind of like creatures in this film. So yeah, what do you guys think? Do you think this is the exact same one? Because again, part of me is almost hoping that these are two different infected because we see what happens to this one on the left in the trailer. He gets absolutely impaled by a giant flaming arrow as he's chasing down Jamie and his son. So part of me is hoping we're going to get more than one. I'm not so sure if these are the same character anymore. But yeah, what do you guys think?
Mhm.
Let us know what you guys think. One alpha, two alphas, or are we going to get multiple big boy infecteds in this film? And yeah, the teeth are a little bit different. I mean, we see this teeth, we have an elongated tooth here on the left. And here we don't really have that on his. So there are some, and even the mustache. I mean, his mustache is much thicker. His hair seems to be much thicker and a little bit darker, where this hair is a little bit more brown. And again, we got those super deep red eyes, where in Chi's version, we only have a little bit of red surrounding the iris. So yeah, when you look at the side-by-side comparison, they do kind of start to look like potentially different ones. But yeah, I mean, this has been a very interesting topic that has been popping up ever since I put out that video because I was convinced it was just one character at first. Now I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure at all anymore. What do you think, PM? You think there's gonna be one, or you think these are two?
I agree with Christy Jellybean and and Ronnie 72. I think it's two different people. The texture of the hair and also the hair looks darker. And I do owe a correction for our last stream. I said that he didn't have didn't have red eyes, and he does. They're just not super red
Yes.
like usually. So
Yes.
usually when you see the eyes, they are bright red. But
Yeah.
Cheese character, while he has red eyes, it's a really dark red where it almost looks normal. It almost fades into a brown, a dark brown. But he
Mhm.
does, in fact, have red eyes. I
Yeah.
think it's two different people. Yeah,
It,
Samuel, I agree.
yeah, it's starting to look a little bit more like that. It is starting to look a little bit more like that. And we didn't really have much context and reference to compare the two until we got this latest TV spot where we finally get the close up of, of Cheese alpha infected. Now that we have that shot to compare these two, now it starts to become a little bit more clear. Yeah, that it kind of looks like these might be two different characters. Absolutely. And it seems like a lot of people are thinking it's two different characters as well. Ronan thinks it's two. Samuel thinks it's two. Therabot thinks it's two as well. And yeah, I mean, yeah, the beard definitely looks a little bit thinner. I mean, we do. I mean, I mean, I know this one's wet and this one isn't, but the facial hair does look a little bit thinner here on the left than it does on the right. And yeah, again, as Christine pointed out, different teeth too. Yeah, I mean, I don't think these are the same anymore. I think these are different. I think these might be different. Yeah, I can't wait. I mean, and if we're going to have more than one kind of crazy, massive level, alpha level infected in this film, then hell yeah, bring it on. Because again, I got super worried that it was going to be Cheese' character that gets impaled while he's running down that causeway chasing Jamie and his son. And I get the feeling that scene is going to come not super early in the film, but a lot earlier in the film, because we know that just based on what we can see and what we can put together from the trailers, it looks like Jamie and his son Spike leave the community at the very beginning of the film because Jamie takes Spike on his first hunt to the mainland, which is a kind of rite of passage of sorts. But it seems like they both get back to the community as they're getting chased down the causeway. And then at some point, Spike leaves the community again on his own without his father in search of a doctor for his mom. And then we see all of these other shots in the trailer that show the alpha infected still in tons of other scenes. So yeah, I mean, I'm very much thinking that there's probably going to be two of them now because I don't think this one's going to survive very long. I think this one's going to get impaled on the causeway, and this one's going to be more of the main antagonist kind of infected in the film.
Yeah, I agree. And we also have different opinions in the chat. So there are some people that are saying it might be just one. It
It
might be
could
the
be,
same infected.
could
It's
be.
just that the reflection of the fire in his
Yep,
face are making it look brighter.
yep.
So I do like that we have both sides of the aisle here.
Yeah, and that's what's been interesting about this discussion. It seems like it has been. I mean, again, just based on our comment sections, I haven't really looked anywhere else. But in our comment sections, it does seem like it's kind of almost split down the middle, where some people think it's two different characters and some people think it's one. And yes, I mean, is the fire just highlighting the red in the eyes, and that's why we can see again, lighting, camera angles, lens flares play a huge part in presenting what you're seeing. So if the fire is lighting up this infected because it's getting closer and closer to them, that could make sense. So you do bring up a big point, Elric. Very good point. But no, it's always interesting to see these discussions because, yeah, it's been pretty split down the middle in terms of what people think up until this point, and that's always makes for a fun conversation for sure. For sure. And yeah, the eyes could be the same. The one just might be glowing more in certain lighting. Again, lighting plays a huge part in scenes like this, especially nighttime scenes. When you have these scenes that are filmed at night, lighting plays a huge part in making something look totally different when sometimes it's the same. So no, it's interesting. I certainly can't wait to find out though. Cannot wait to find out.
Mm.
Um, yeah, we shall see. We are less than 3 weeks away from finding out, guys. We are getting closer and closer. If that's the same infected, they fucked up showing his death in the trailer. That's what I'm worried about too, as well. It's like, I mean, we see what happens to at least that one on the causeway. And then they also put out this other TV spot that came out recently. And we look at Cheese hair, and we look at how how much of a monster he is. And then we saw this one, which is a closer shot of the one that is chasing Jamie and Spike down the causeway. And I mean, it's hard to tell. This is the one that's chasing Jamie and Spike on the causeway. I mean, looks super jacked, super buffed, just like Cheese version, but it's hard to tell. It's super dark. I mean, you can't really quite tell if it's the same character as Cheese or not. So, I mean, if nothing else, they're leaving it a little bit ambiguous. But yeah, it's been interesting to see everybody's guesses in terms of what people think. Is it the same? Is it different? I suppose only time will tell. I suppose only time will tell. But one thing's for sure, he's an absolutely massive beast, a massive monster. I think he's going to be a hugely formidable problem in the film when it comes out. You know, and that's the thing about these 28 years later films, these 28 days or 28 weeks films. You always have the human antagonist part, like there's always a human element of villainy, and then there's always one infected that's a little bit more than the rest. Whether it's the first 28 days later film, we have that one soldier infected that seems to be a little bit smarter than the rest, and one that's chained up by the soldiers that Jim lets loose. And then of course we have Dawn in the second one. So there always seems to be at least one infected that's heightened, that's smarter and stronger and more intelligent than the rest, but you always have that human element of antagonists as well. And I think we're going to see both here. I think we're going to get a mix of human antagonists and infected antagonists. I have a feeling the alpha is interested in the newborn somehow. Ooh, interesting. Interesting. I mean, shit, maybe. Who knows? Who freaking knows? I mean, one thing that was very interesting, and we saw some comments in some of our recent videos, and people were talking about, you know, what is the prolonged effect going to have on someone who is infected as a child? And that we really don't know. Again, we have no idea what the prolonged long-term effects of having rage virus in you does over the course of 28 years. So if someone gets infected as a child and manages to survive and thrive and grow all the way to adulthood, who knows what that adult level infected is going to look like when it's done and grown up. And if there is something different there, if infecting a child has a different impact on the rage virus victims when they grow up, then who knows? Maybe he is after the child to try and create another intelligent kind of infected like himself.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do see in the chat, and also in the comments of your last video, because they have hinted or given us the clue that they used animals, what type of animal a human would resemble,
Yeah,
as you know, a way of thinking about the infected. Animals
yeah,
do reproduce, so they
they do.
do have offspring. There could be, I mean, I hate to think about it, right? It's like, oh my gosh, I really don't want to think about it, but it is a theory that makes sense. Animals do reproduce, so what tells us that the infected wouldn't? If they have reverted to their animalistic selves, maybe they are reproducing amongst themselves and creating these
Mm,
new sort of infected humans, like Cheese character, who,
yeah.
while they're infected because they were born with the virus, maybe have a way of coexisting with the virus to a point where
Mm.
they can still think and strategize.
Yeah, I mean, when you're a child, your body and your brain chemistry, it's not fully developed yet. You know, you're still growing, you're still developing, you're still forming your mind. So if you get infected when you're a child, again, you never know what kind of effect that's going to have on someone when they grow up. Maybe that person grows up and they are able to kind of have a better level of control over the infection where they can kind of master it in a sense. And if that is the case, then yeah, I could maybe see why they're maybe coming after children. And as you mentioned, it's a freaking scary thought to see, infected coming after children to infect them. It's super fucking dark. But this is 28 Days Later franchise, so who knows? Who knows? Will Jim play a main role? Not in this first film. And I know that's been a huge question on everybody's minds up until this point. What is up with Jim? Where has Jim been over these last 28 years? We have some very interesting kind of leaked photos, although they've never been 100% confirmed, but there have been some leaked photos that show Cillian Murphy on set while they were filming. But it seems like he's not going to be in this first film, but they are setting him up to make an appearance in either the second or the third film. Danny Boyle has kind of talked a little bit about it and says that Cillian Murphy's role is going to be a special one. And he's also said we're going to have to wait a little while for that to happen. So it does seem like we are going to see Jim again, but I don't think he's going to play a main role, at least not in this first film. Maybe he'll play more of a main role in the second or third film, but it seems like they are setting his character up to return at some point. And I know that's what a lot of people want to see. I mean, when I remember when 28 Weeks Later came out, everybody wanted to know what's up with Jim back then too. And even more so now after all these years. So yes, I very much cannot wait to see what kind of role, what kind of part is Jim going to play in this new trilogy. Again, it does look like he's going to make an appearance at some point. It just looks like we're not going to see him in this first film. And I think that's a good way to put it. I mean, if it was me, I would probably have Jim, like if I was constructing this trilogy, I would probably have Jim show up in like the very last scene of the first film and set it up for the second film. You know, have a nice kind of Easter egg, a nice kind of cliffhanger to end this first film off with Jim appearing for the first time in 23 years, because it's been 23 years since the first one came out. So yes, it looks like we're going to see Jim at some point, but it looks like he's not going to be in this first film at least. But what about you? I mean, have you thought about what kind of role Jim might have, and what do you guys think in the chat as well? If we do see Jim in this new trilogy, what kind of Jim are we going to see? What has he been up to all this time? Where has he been? Is he going to be with anybody? Is he still with these survivors he was with at the end of 28 Days Later? What do you think in terms of Jim? Do you think he's going to have a big impact on the trilogy, or do you think his role is going to be a little bit more kind of minimal while they focus more on these new characters?
Well, I mean, when they say special, a special role, it makes me think that it's going to be important, that it's not going to be just a background person, somebody that can give their testimony on what they lived through. When they say special, it makes me think important. Now, it's complicated because in the first movie, we don't really get a lot of background on Jim. We don't know what he did before the accident that landed him in the hospital. So we don't know if he has any scientific knowledge or if he worked in government. We don't know what skills he has in order
I
to
believe he was
place
a
him.
I think he was a courier. He rode a bicycle. I think he was a courier on a bicycle, and he got hit by a car, and that's what put him in the coma. If I'm not mistaken, I might be wrong.
Well, in that case, I don't see him being the president of the country, right? If he,
No,
I'm just basing off like what are the skills that he has that
yeah. What
can
can he offer?
help us position him.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
a bicycle carrier, what could he be doing now? I have no idea. I'm just gonna go with whatever the chat says. They usually know.
Mm. Yeah, and even though he was a courier, who knows what kind of skills he's acquired over this last 28-year time period. 28 years is a long time to be living in this rage infected world. Who knows what he has learned? Who knows what kind of skills he has picked up? Yeah, I mean, I can't wait to see what kind of role Jim's going to have. I think everybody would be super disappointed if they didn't bring Jim back at some point in this trilogy. And I think they knew that coming in, which is why Danny Boyle has been kind of teasing his return, and talking about it in very ambiguous terms, I guess. But yeah, I have to imagine he's going to play a pretty significant role in the trilogy. Not in this first film. I don't think we're going to see him in the first film. Maybe we'll see him show up in the second or at the end of the second film, and they'll set him up for the third film. I could see them making us wait that long for Jim's actual return. But at some point, yes, they need to bring him back, and we need to find out Jim's story. Where has he been for the last 28 years? What has he been doing? How has he survived? And yes, what kind of role is he going to ultimately play in this new trilogy with this new iteration and new generation of characters? I would love to see Jim and Aaron Taylor Johnson's Jamie on screen at the same time. That would be freaking awesome. And Ray Fiennes, love it.
Oh, for sure. And I love what Levy Kami 451 is saying here.
Mhm.
Now that we have him on the screen, all speculation and theories, but I love it. So if Jim and Selena had a child, we did see that they were intimate in the first movie, the 28 Days Later
Ooh,
movie. Both of
ooh,
them were intimate, so they kind of made a
yes.
point to show that to us. If they had a child, would it resemble a Chase character? And I think it would. I think that
Ooh,
he looks like he could potentially be um, a mix of Selena and Jim.
Interesting. Very interesting. I hadn't thought of that myself, but that's a very interesting idea. I mean, like you said, they were intimate. We know that they had fallen in love. I'm sure hopefully they went on to have a beautiful life together, and maybe they did pop out a few children. Who knows? I mean, again, I love these outside of the box theories. I mean, there's no such thing as too much tinfoil. That's what we always say on this channel. Throw on that tinfoil hat, dive into that rabbit hole, have fun with these kinds of things. These kinds of movies, these kinds of films, these kind of TV shows that we cover here on the channel, they usually tend to always have a mystery aspect to them, because that stuff is always the funnest to talk about. It's always the funnest to kind of theorize around something that is mysterious, something that we really don't fully understand. So yeah, always have fun with it. Never be afraid to kind of throw on that tinfoil hat. But yeah, who knows? I mean, could this even be Jim and Selena's freaking kid? Who fucking knows? Love the idea, though. Love the idea.
Love it.
Yeah, that's cool. Could intelligence vary based on how intelligent they were as humans? Yes, Don was an incredible survivor. Makes sense why he was able to sneak around military/dumb infected. I think that could very well factor into it, because again, when these rage virus victims get infected, it's not like they die and get risen back as undead. These are living, breathing humans whose brain still functions. There's still synapses firing. There's still brain chemistry there. They still need sustenance to eat and to survive. So yeah, I 100% could totally see that being a factor, where the level of intelligence that they had when they were human, when they were infected, could factor into how smart of an infected they become. Could definitely see one correlating to the other. I think that makes sense.
I like it. And Elric Soul Thief made a point that I think correlates to this in the chat. The child in the first movie, 28 days later, the child that Jim has to kill speaks
Mhm.
to him and says, I hate you. So he's able to speak and kind of
True.
function with the virus. And that might be because of different levels of intelligence, right? Maybe because that's a great point. You're not dying and resurrecting. So, whatever intelligence you possess will be the intelligence that the infected has. The
Mhm.
only difference is now you are um, infected with the rage virus, right?
Yeah.
So, that would be interesting if we could see that Chi's character can speak. I would like
Mm.
that.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's an interesting idea. I think it's a very interesting idea. I think, yeah, the level of intelligence you had before you were infected could very well play a part in how smart of an infected you become. Yeah, I like that idea. This is a pretty interesting one as well. The Doctor might have created the Alphas. I think that the island has a secret role. The entire has a secret role in the entire ecosystem. I mean, I'm really looking forward to Ray Fiennes' character and learning out a little bit more about him. We talked a little bit about him in some of our recent videos. They're keeping his character very much mysterious as well. The only thing we really know is that he is a doctor and he lives on the mainland, and he seems to have some very strange views on life, and appears to be at least appears to have some kind of fascination with death based on some of the dialogue in the Bone Temple. But one thing I thought could have been super interesting is that if because one thing we saw in the behind the scenes feature, just to kind of set the stage, the Aaron Taylor Johnson behind the scenes feature that just recently came out, we hear him specifically say something that stood out to me, that Holy Island doesn't have any doctors and it doesn't have any medicine. That stood out to me right off the bat, because he also tells us that Holy Island, the community, has lasted for well over 20 years. That's a pretty big feat in and of itself. Communities don't really last that long in worlds like this. Now, yes, their natural defenses definitely help them a ton in terms of the very small causeway being the only way on and off the island. So again, it provides a very, very strong natural defense to the infected. So you're not just going to have random infected kind of strolling up to their gates very often, with that causeway only being accessible a few hours during the day when low tide's around. So that definitely played a part in why Holy Island has survived as long as it has. But when I heard that Holy Island doesn't have a doctor and doesn't have any medicine, that kind of made me start scratching my head. Like, wait a minute, a community this big and that has lasted this long doesn't have any kind of doctor? They have no kind of medicine. Are you kidding me? That seems very unlikely. And then I started to think that maybe Ray Fiennes' character, Dr. Kelson, was originally a member of Holy Island. What if that is his origin? What if Dr. Kelson was a member of Holy Island at some point, and maybe he left to go to the mainland to either study the virus a little bit more closely because he wanted to experiment, as you mentioned. Maybe he's experimenting. Did he have a hand in creating these kind of alpha-like infecteds? I think that's an interesting idea. But I always wondered if Dr. Kelson, Ray Fiennes' character, was originally a member of Holy Island, and he either left of his own accord at some point to go and research, or maybe he was even exiled. We know that he has some strange ideas. We know that he has some very strange beliefs. And if Dr. Kelson did have a fascination with the rage virus and he did want to study it further, I wouldn't be surprised if he was once a member of Holy Island, and maybe he even brought an infected onto the island to study it at some point, and they exiled him because he brought too much danger to the community. At this point, I'm almost hoping that Ray Fiennes' character was a former member of Holy Island, because it just seems very strange that that community would have lasted as long as they did without any doctor, without any medicine. Very strange. And then we also know that at some point in the film, Spike leaves Holy Island to go in search of a doctor for his dying mother. How would Spike ever know that there's a doctor on the mainland to go and find unless he used to live there at some point? I always thought that was very weird. It's like Spike's going to go into the mainland and just randomly search for a doctor and hope he gets lucky. That's crazy. Nobody would do that. But if he had forewarned knowledge of a doctor being on the mainland, if he had heard the stories, or maybe even, who knows how long it's been since Dr. Kelson has been on the mainland, but seeing as Spike is pretty young, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe he heard stories that there was a doctor that lived here at some point and is now living on the mainland. Maybe he knew about this doctor ahead of time. That's why he goes in search for him, because it just seems very random for him to just go and search for a doctor on the mainland unless he knew there was already one there. So part of me is really hoping that Ray Fiennes' character is going to have some ties to Holy Island. Maybe he was a member of the community at some point. Again, either left of his own volition to go study the rage virus a little bit closer in its natural habitat, or maybe he was exiled because his beliefs and the experiments he was doing on Holy Island were just too dangerous. They didn't want him there anymore.
I love it. So that's one of my favorite theories, and it makes the most sense. Also, being that it's the child, it's Spike who's looking for this doctor, it's not the father.
Yeah.
If there was a need for a doctor, and if somebody had to go, it would be the father. If this was sanctioned by the community, it would probably be the father who would know, because of the experience that he's had. He says there's strange people on the mainland. So he knows who lives there. He knows what it's like. Why would the child go? The child would go if he is looking for a doctor that was kicked out of the island.
Yeah.
Children are more than likely to not follow the rules, where the father might be like, absolutely not, we're not talking to him, we can engage with him, this is part of the rules, and not willing to go. It is the child that would probably say, you know what, I'm gonna go anyway, and not follow
Mhm.
the rules of the community and look for a doctor for his mother. So I like it. I think it makes sense. And that's why when we see those interactions, we were commenting about this in the last live stream, and people in the chat were also saying the interactions, you can't really pinpoint them as negative. They almost look like they know each other, like there's a
Mhm.
familiar way about them, like
Kind
he's
of,
being
yeah.
super nice to Spike. For some
Mhm.
reason he's being nice to him, right? He's telling him about memento mori, and about how there's different types of deaths, and some are better than others, right?
Mhm.
So almost as a sort of a counselor, almost guiding Spike through the world post apocalypse, right? So
Mhm.
I like it. It makes total sense.
I think it makes sense. I think it would at least answer a few things as to why Spike knows that there's a doctor out there on the mainland somewhere. Again, it just seems like that's very random for him to just assume that he can go and find a doctor if he goes to the mainland, unless he knows that there's already one there. Unless Dr. Kelson was part of Holy Island at some point. I just think it fits. I think it would fit. I don't know if that's what they're going to do, but I think it would fit. Someone else was brought up the other night, And if you're in the chat, definitely let me know who it was. I forget who said it, but someone mentioned this during our last stream, that maybe Dr. Kelson's character was one of the original doctors that was originally studying the rage virus when it was in the chimpanzees. And I love that fucking theory. I think that theory is one of the coolest fucking theories I've heard up until this point. Because yes, if you look at Ray Fiennes' character, he's clearly old enough to have been a doctor. I mean, he was a doctor in the real world before the UK fell to shit. He's very much old enough to be in that age range. But I love that theory that maybe Ray Fiennes' character, Dr. Kelson, was one of the original doctors, the original scientists that was studying the rage virus while it was still in the chimpanzees at the beginning of 28 Days Later. Maybe he was part of that original research team. I just think that's such a brilliant theory, and it's a very cool way to tie 28 years later and his character all the way back to the first film and to the origin of the outbreak. And maybe that's why Dr. Kelson has this fascination with death. Maybe that's why he's out there in the mainland studying this a little bit deeper, because he has a more intimate knowledge about the virus than anybody else, because he was one of the originals that studied it from the very beginning when it was in chimpanzees. I just love that theory. It's such a cool theory.
I love it. I love it. I really love what Minerva is saying. The virus did not just survive, it has adapted and it now hunts. Because that's kind of what we see the king of the infected, as you labeled him, doing, right?
Yeah.
They are hunting the humans. Love it.
I like that. Yeah, maybe. And again, that just points to another just completely heightened new level of intelligence that we have just not seen yet before with these kinds of infected. The fact that they're hunting, they're stalking. I think we see scenes in the trailer that kind of even back what Minerva is saying up a little bit. One of the things we talked about in my latest video is we have that one new scene in one of the newest TV spots of what appears to be the Alpha infected ambushing the soldiers in the tunnel. And it literally looks like he's jumping down on them from above, like he was sitting, lying in wait and waiting for the right time to strike, showcasing that heightened intelligence, showcasing that ability to hunt, to stalk and hunt your prey. So no, I think that's a very interesting idea. Very, very interesting idea. I like that, Minerva. I mean, maybe they are. Maybe they're hunting, and maybe that's what that scene is. Him hunting these soldiers as they drop into the tunnel. Love that. Love that. We got Comics Made in the house. What is up, Dean James? Good to see you, my friend. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Great comic book artist. Our friend Comics Made here. Great comic book artist. Is it confirmed that Jim is going to be in this new trilogy? But they haven't told us anything about him other than that he is going to be in these movies. Yeah, that's the thing, that they're keeping it very ambiguous. And I feel like Danny Boyle is doing that on purpose. But it looks like we are going to get him at some point. The only thing Danny Boyle has said is that Jim isn't in the first movie. He's not in the first movie. Danny Boyle has said that. But if he's saying he's not in the first movie, that's because he's going to be showing up in either the second or the third. If he just wasn't going to be in the trilogy, he would just say he's not in this trilogy. We know that he's attached to the trilogy as an executive producer. And again, we've also seen a lot of leaked photos that show Cillian Murphy looking a lot older with like grayish hair and like a grayish kind of beard on set of 28 Years Later while they were filming. But seeing as they filmed 28 Years Later and The Bone Temple back to back, they filmed both of these films all at once. It could be that he was on set because he was filming scenes for the second film. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Again, I'm not expecting to see Jim in this first film, but I think we are definitely going to be getting him in this trilogy. It seems like Danny Boyle has been hinting at that in terms of his role being a special one, his role coming quote unquote later on. They're keeping it ambiguous, but they're definitely hinting that he will be back. Yes. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to, again, I think seeing Jim's going to be very interesting in what he's been up to all these years. Who knows what kind of state he's in? Not only do I want to see what kind of state he's in, but I want to see his mental state. What kind of state is he in mentally? How has he held up over the years, over these 28 years? What is his psyche like? All the stuff that he's been through. I mean, we see everything he goes through just in 28 Days Later. But if you're surviving 28 years of that, who knows all the things that Jim has been through up until this point? Who knows what kind of Jim we're going to meet? We could meet a very different Jim now than the Jim we saw at the end of 28 Days Later. Could, for better or for worse. And I think we will. I think this Jim's going to be a lot different than the original Jim. I mean, how could he not be after 28 years of living in this hellhole? That's going to change a person. So yeah, it looks like we are going to get him at some point in the trilogy. Just doesn't look like he's in the first film. So I can't wait. Yeah, Jim hanging out the window, taunting them. Yeah, someone brought up the other day that they thought that it was actually Cillian Murphy in the trailer. That one character, like at the very beginning of the first trailer that they released, we see one character behind a horse tilling a field. The horse is kind of pulling the till, and we see him farming. For some reason, there was a few people who thought that was Cillian Murphy. And again, it's not a good shot. You can zoom in as much as you want, but it's super blurry. It's really impossible to tell who that is. But I don't think it's Cillian Murphy personally, because some people thought that maybe he's a member of Holy Island. Maybe Cillian Murphy has been living on Holy Island this whole time, and he's been right under our noses. While that's possible, I don't think that's going to be the case. I think his role is going to be a little more standoutish than that. I think it's going to be a special role, something that's worthy of his re-entry into the story. But no, I don't think he's been living in Holy Island this whole time, and I don't think that was him tilling the field. But I thought that was an interesting idea, at least, that maybe he's been right under our noses this whole time, and yeah, he's just laughing at everybody from the freaking window. Maybe. Who
I
knows?
like it. Love it. And the most interesting question about his character, because in the first movie, when we were watching it, we were commenting on how he is the standout human being in the movie that shows you that you can hold on to your humanity, your kindness,
Yeah.
your will to do the right thing, right? My question is, has he been able to hold on to that humanity and that kindness and that moral compass for 28 years? Is he
Yeah.
still somebody that is trying to do good in
Yeah.
this world? Or has he changed? Has he gone dark? And perhaps that's the twist. The twist of the film is that he has now become, maybe the very thing that he fought against in the first film.
Yeah, I do like that idea, because that's one great part of Jim's arc in that first film is he's fighting to not become infected, but it's almost like in the in the process of fighting to avoid the infection, he starts acting like infected. The way he starts taking out those soldiers at the end of the film, it's very reminiscent to how the rage virus victims attack their prey. And they very much, and that's not a coincidence. We've heard Cillian Murphy talk about this in interviews, where the whole point of Jim's journey is trying to avoid the infection so much to the point where by the end of the film, he starts acting like the infected. But he's able to pull himself back for it and remember his humanity and rescue the people that matter to him. And I always thought that was a very interesting idea, where you're resisting so hard to become infected that you start losing your humanity and you start acting like the infected. And the way that Jim takes out some of the soldiers at the end of the film, it was very deliberate why they made those scenes so gruesome, so bloody, where you see Jim just literally popping out people's eyes with his bare freaking hands. He's killing people in the same manner, the same violent manner that rage virus victims would kill their victims. Super violent, super bloody, super gruesome. They wanted to portray that Jim himself is acting like an infected. Yes, he avoid becoming infected, but he's acting like an infected nonetheless. And I always thought that was a brilliant, brilliant idea and take for the character, where you're trying to resist something so hard that you end up becoming it anyway in a different way. So yes, I think you're 100% right. What is this Jim going to look like 28 years later? Has he been able to hold on to that humanity, or has he surrendered to his more animal instincts like we start to see him do at the end of the first film?
Yep, I totally agree with the chat. They're commenting on what a good observation that is. Indeed, it is a very good observation. And the interesting part about it is that not only is he fighting not to be like the infected, but he's also fighting not to be like the humans that have survived by doing
Yeah,
horrible things.
yeah,
But what is the way that he ends up surviving? By slaughtering those people. And so, I mean, it's always a gray area, right? When we
yeah.
say, has he been able to hold on to his humanity?
Hmm.
It could be that he has held on to his humanity, but still has done some horrible, horrifying things to get
Yeah,
there. And
yes.
are we able to accept that and still call him good, or, a force of good in the world? Or is it going to be more complicated?
Very good point. Yeah, that's a very good point. So it's and again, that's one of the most intriguing things about Jim. Hopefully, showing up at some point, seeing what kind of state is he in. Did he hold on to that humanity or not? Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I like that. I think that's very interesting. Yeah, I can't wait. I cannot freaking wait. I think this is going to be again such a good film. And again, I don't think we're going to get Cillian Murphy in this first film, but it looks like he's going to return at some point, and I cannot wait to see in what capacity he does turn in. But yeah, I mean, no, I genuinely think he fathered the alpha since he was infected with rage in his own way at the end of his first film. I mean, maybe again, I think that's an interesting idea too. I think it's a very interesting idea. When they show a coordinated attack by the infected with heavy bass music, it's going to be chilling like the first film. Yes, odd but cools. It's going to be super chilling, and I think that's exactly what we're going to get with that one scene in the field when we see Jamie and his son Spike. We get that little preview scene of them in the field. They're seeing the infected on the horizon, and we see Jamie tell his son to stay perfectly still. He says, "Stay perfectly still," hoping that the rage virus victims wouldn't notice them, wouldn't see them from that far. And then if you look ever so closely, it's like you almost see this character, who many believe to be the alpha infected, as he's been dubbed. You kind of see him almost kind of motion, almost like he's motioning in order to attack. And before he does that, all of the rage virus victims behind him are staying relatively still. But as soon as he kind of does that motion and he kind of leans forward, and it's almost like he's giving it's almost like body language for attack. We start to see all the rage virus infected start charging at Jamie and his son. As soon as it's almost like he gives the order for them to attack. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if we see some kind of coordinated attack or multiple in this film. Because again, it seems like these rage virus victims have evolved to the point where they're even smarter than anything we've seen in the previous films, and they were pretty smart in some of the previous films too. Again, Dawn in 28 Weeks Later was super smart. Smart enough to avoid the explosion, avoid the carpet bomb, smart enough to kind of evade soldiers and stuff. Like, he was super fucking smart. And I think we're going to see an even higher level of intelligence here in this film, even greater than Dawn for sure. Yeah, I love it. I love it. Did Jim change his pheromones to blend in with the zombies since he simulated the rage in the rage virus? I mean, that's an interesting idea. Again, he very much, the rage inside of him very much did take over for a little bit at the end of that film, where again he's very much he's very much taking out these soldiers in the same manner that rage virus victims kill their victims. So I think that's an interesting idea. That could he have maybe changed his body chemistry or his pheromones to the sense where the rage is in him. I think it's an interesting idea. I mean, I don't know, but it's a very interesting idea. Odd Cools. Yeah, really good stuff. I've seen the first 28 minutes of 28 Years Later, by the way, guys, early screening. Awesome. That is awesome. Yeah, I just recently saw that they have just recently started showing again, the first, I love how they're just doing the first 28 minutes too. I think that's super. Again, the marketing behind this film has been genius. Like, from the very beginning, this film has had such genius marketing, from the trailer selection, the Boots poem, everything's been genius. And I love how they're doing that right now. How they are showing the first 28 minutes of 28 Years Later. And that's awesome. That is super, super awesome. And in terms of me posting any content on it, yeah, I'll probably do something on it at some point if I get a chance to see it. Yeah, I have to applaud the marketing of the film. It's just so brilliant, showing just the first 28 minutes of 28 Years Later. Genius, absolute genius. But I hope you enjoyed it. From what I'm hearing, from a few people that I've seen that have seen the first 28 minutes, some of the few people that I've talked to, people are loving it. People are loving it, and even some of the more public reviews on it. We were looking at one on X a little earlier, where someone who also saw the first 28 minutes, 28 years later, was raving about it. Called it a certified banger, immediately thrown back into the brutal world with all the artistic grit, rage, and a roster of interesting characters. An excellent hook to the new story. And if the rest of the movie is this good, it's a certified banger. And that's awesome. It seems like the few people who have been seeing this first 28 minutes are loving what they're seeing so far. And that just gives me even more confidence. But yeah, I'll do something on it at some point for sure. For sure. Can't wait. And again, super brilliant. Super brilliant. It was really cool. Talk to Danny Boyle, such a heart in the first 28 minutes of this movie. It's actually gory. The opening scene is terrifying. Ooh, Life of Luxury, Ethan Products. That is awesome. Love that. Yeah, I recently saw the post interview. I guess he got up on stage. Him, Aaron Taylor Johnson, and Jodie Comer were taking some questions from the moderator and from the crowd. I guess we actually have the interview here. Somebody posted it on YouTube. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet, but maybe I can pull it up here and we can play it and take a look at it together if you guys want. It's like a 15-minute clip of a Q&A with Danny Boyle, Aaron Taylor Johnson, and Jodie Comer. But no, that's awesome. That's super awesome. I mean, especially if you were able to see the early screening and even talk to Danny Boyle, that's super fucking awesome. Congratulations. Yeah, I mean, he's I've never met Danny Boyle, but from all intents and purposes, he seems super cool, super down to earth. He seems like he's someone who's super passionate about filmmaking and about storytelling in general. And he loves to kind of surprise people from what I can tell. So no, that's awesome. That's super awesome that you had that opportunity to be a part of that Q&A. That's really cool. Awesome stuff.
Oh, for sure. And one of the things too is the cinematography in this
Yes.
movie.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. And you have shown some of it in your videos, the videos that you've made. While they're doing horrifying things, right? The chase scene of Spike and his father running through the water with the colors in the background.
One of my favorites.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And now that I know that it was an iPhone, right? That is filming these beautiful, beautiful scenes. It makes me want to
Mhm.
buy the iPhone. I wonder, was it the newest iPhone that they use? Um,
Yes,
and
it
because
is.
of the fact that you would not think that they can portray such horror in a beautiful way, but it's beautiful. Even the bone temple as it's on fire is so beautiful, so aesthetically pleasing.
It really is. The cinematography just looks phenomenal. You get some of the most beautiful shots in some of these trailers. That one that you mentioned, the one where you can kind of see the aurora borealis in the background, the northern lights in the background. You got the purple hues and the pink and all of that. Beautiful. It's a beautiful contrast shot because it's hard to get really good looking nighttime shots at times. Sometimes people really fuck up bad when they try to shoot scenes at night. Not everybody has an eye for setting up good lighting, for creating that good contrast where people can see what's actually going on at night. And Game of Thrones season 8 is very famous for missing the mark totally on this. But no, I mean, the cinematography on 28 Years Later looks phenomenal. And yeah, to know that they filmed a good portion of this film with nothing but iPhones. I mean, yes, they're very sophisticated iPhones. We see a big kind of row of a custom rig with 20 iPhones here that they filmed some of the scenes in the forest with. But we also see some of these other shots. And yes, it's an iPhone that they're filming with, but it's an iPhone that's hooked up to some very sophisticated equipment. Here we see the phone right here, but it's very much hooked up to some very sophisticated lenses and stuff. And I believe they use Apple Pro and ProRes. Are the two programs that they use when filming a movie with an iPhone. But even the iPhone just by itself is capable of capturing pretty crystal clear 4K imagery. And that's why even in some of the other shots, we see that this whole apparatus isn't attached to the phone. It's just the phones here. Here we have that shot of them running down the causeway. And we see a bunch of iPhones with just iPhone screens. Same thing with this shot in the forest, just the iPhone screens. It's not even hooked up to the ProRes. They probably do that in post-production, I would imagine. And from what I could gather from some of the minimal research I've done on the differences between filming with iPhones and filming with regular equipment nowadays, is that there's some added benefits in terms of maneuverability, flexibility, being able to capture shots that you just can't really capture with regular films. Some of the actors talk about it being a little bit weird. They're super used to kind of having a camera in their face, and now all of a sudden they have a phone in their face, so they're kind of weirded out by it. I guess for some actors it takes a little getting used to. But in terms of a production standpoint, it's cost effective. It costs so much less, obviously, to film a movie with an iPhone compared to all of this crazy expensive equipment that costs tens of thousands of dollars, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars. Some of this equipment can cost on these big budget productions. And knowing what we know about 28 years later, they only had a budget of around 60 million, which is super small. Like $60 million is nothing. That is such a low budget for today's movie standards when you have TV shows that are throwing $200 or $300 million on a single season, like Rings of Power and The Acolyte, and even Game of Thrones was pretty costly. But knowing that they were able to create 28 years later on only a $60 million budget is incredibly impressive. And this is how they were able to do it, because it is very cost effective to film with these iPhones. And again, you get not only do you get perfectly beautiful shots, but you have more maneuverability. You can capture shots that you cannot capture with bigger rigs and bigger cameras. You have so much flexibility, and you have the option of filming literally multiple angles at once, especially with this one, with the curve, with the rig, with the curve in the 20 iPhones. They're able to capture multiple different angles, multiple different shots all at once, and then they can cherry pick what they want to use in post-production. So in terms of just overall maneuverability and cost effectiveness, and just how incredibly impressive it is that they're doing this shit, I gotta hand it to them. I mean, it seems like it's revolutionizing a whole new way of filming films, where nowadays we're seeing more and more and more and more productions film their shows and films with iPhones now. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes me want to buy that iPhone because it's beautiful. Well, we have seen the previews, the trailer. So what do you say, Mr. Jeremy Eisenfire? Are you going to convert to the iPhone?
No, never. Absolutely not. As impressed as I am with all of this, I am unabashedly a Team Android member. I will not be converting to iPhones, but I can at least appreciate the sophistication here that we're seeing with some of these filming techniques with these iPhones. It's brilliant. It's super genius, and it's commendable too. Yeah, and again, considering how cost effective it is, I think we're going to start seeing a lot more studios and a lot more productions start using these iPhones for their filming, because it costs so much less and you can get so much more out of it. It's a no-brainer. We're going to see this become a big thing in Hollywood, I think. Can't wait. Awesome stuff. All right. Let's see what else we got. Let's see what else we got. I think the most important question is how Dr. Kelson avoids being detected by infected, considering that he presumably lives at the Bone Temple in open space. That was a very interesting question as well. I mean, it does seem like he's pretty comfortable out there, doesn't it? I mean, he's just out there in the open, sleeping at the Bone Temple, lighting up fires next to it at night. So yeah, I have wondered that as well. Like, how is he so confident in the fact that he's going to remain undetectable? Yeah, I don't know, but we do see some of these recent scenes. Here we see Spike, his mom, and Dr. Kelson, and they're literally just huddled right next to the Bone Temple. They got fires going, a fire going up here. They look very comfortable. It looks like it's his freaking camp. And yeah, this place, judging by what we've seen during daylight shots, is wide open. It offers little to no protection from the infected. Unless this is just one of those areas where maybe the infected just don't come. That's one thing that could be very interesting, that we have no idea who built this bone temple. Did Dr. Kelson build it himself? Did he find it and somebody else built it? Did humans build it? Did the cult build it? Did infected build it? Many questions still surrounding this bone temple. But it definitely seems, if nothing else, Dr. Kelson is very at home near it. It seems like he has made this his camp. He seems like he's got an intimate knowledge, an intimate kind of connection to this bone temple. And then we see some of those shots in some of the earlier trailers of Dr. Kelson saying there were so many dead, infected and uninfected alike. And we see what looks to be a literal football field. Here it is. Almost a damn football field's worth of bodies just scattered everywhere. And you start to wonder, is this how the bone temple was built? Could this potentially be a flashback to how Dr. Kelson first built the bone temple? Did he build it himself, maybe? And did he start using all of these bodies to build it? And where the hell did all these bodies come from in the first place is a bigger question, I suppose. If he's talking about there were so many dead, infected and uninfected alike, what the hell happened? What kind of massive event, what kind of cataclysmic event happened that led to this many dead bodies being in one place? What the fuck happened here, I guess, is the real question. And if so, were these bodies what was used to build the bone temple? And was it built by Ray Fiennes' character himself? Did Dr. Kelson build it? Many questions, tons of questions we still have, of course, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it definitely seems like he's very at home at the bone temple. And again, it doesn't seem like it offers up much protection from the infected, but maybe it's potentially just one of those areas where even infected don't come.
I like it. I was thinking about this. There is precedent for the bone temple. Um, so what we see is that we see him handing Spike a skull, but in the background, he's covered in blood himself, and he seems to have like a boiler
Yep.
there in the background. He has a fire going, and
Yep.
it looks like he has equipment that he has made in order to process the
Yes.
skulls.
And
And
to
there is
boil down the
precedent.
skull. Yep.
Exactly. There
Yep.
is precedent for this sort of thing. It made me think of the Paris catacombs, where there was so many bodies that it gets to the point where you're no longer burying them, but you are constructing structures out of the dead bodies.
Yep.
So there is precedent for this, and while we may look at it and not look at it in the best of light, right? We immediately think cult, not necessarily. It
No.
might just be that there
A
are so
memento to the
many
dead.
bodies. Yes, just like in the Paris catacombs, right?
Yep.
Um, in this scene with all of the bodies, I noticed that they're all kind of lined up perfectly.
Yep.
I For some reason I don't think that he did that himself. There is no point of lining them up and spacing them out perfectly instead of
Mm-hmm.
just putting them in a pile closer to
Yep.
him so that he can process them. And it makes me think of cults, right? They all drank the Kool-Aid. We know what
Yes.
happens at the end of the world, right? You will get the
Yes.
people who say, hey, it's the end of the world, mass suicide, Mimi and the forest. We were just
Yes.
talking about this the other day, right? I said I
Yep.
would do that.
Yep. No, that's a very good point. I think you could be onto something there.
This is what it would look like. It would look like a gathering of people perfectly spaced out who took their lives.
Yeah.
Because there seems to be order to this, and there's even a fire in the background, some sort of ritual that went on.
Yeah.
And if I'm thinking about it, I'm guessing that a lot of people would, and it would be a mass suicide sort of event.
I mean, it would certainly explain why so many bodies are in one place. Because again, that's my question. How did these bodies get here? Who killed all these people? How did they die? Are they infected? Are they human? Is it a mix of both human and infected? What exactly is going on here? And of course, was this the foundation for building the bone temple? Did these bodies contribute to building the temple? And who built the temple? Was it Dr. Kelson or someone else? Yeah, I mean, no, all incredible questions, and I can't wait to get the answers. But no, I love that idea, though, that again, we're getting all this, all these rumors and all these hints that there's some kind of cult like, aspect to this film. What if there isn't? What if there used to be? What if this is the remnants of some cult that committed mass suicide? Again, this is a lot of freaking bodies. Like, if this was something where all these people got killed in some heinous manner, that's a cataclysmic level event that happened to cause this many deaths. But if they all killed themselves, that could explain it. So no, I think that's a very interesting idea. Very interesting idea. I like it. I like it. Do you think the success of this trilogy can spark a game, or that Netflix or Hulu something would take on and make a series out of 28? I think a series would be a little more likely. I don't know how likely a game could be, like a video game. It would be cool. It'd be certainly cool. I mean, if they made a 28 years later video game, I'd certainly buy it. But I think a series is much more likely. If 28 years later does super well, if the entire trilogy does super well, and people and the studio knows that there is an appetite for more of this, absolutely, I could totally see this leading to a mini series or a full-on TV series at somewhere like Netflix or Hulu or Apple TV or something like that. Definitely could totally stand. I would love that. I mean, I would fucking love a 28 years later TV series. That would be awesome.
I want to see the other places. I want to see Paris
Yes.
burning. I want to see the US. All of these other places, right? How did the Americans react to this? Because somehow I imagine in my mind, I love that it's UK based and European, but they just seem to be so much more controlled and chill. And I mean, it's still horrifying, but how did the Americans react to this if
Yeah.
this indeed happened in the US?
Yeah. True. And again, I would love to see, like, at the end of the film, we see a little glimpse that maybe the virus did get outside of the UK, and we're seeing other parts of the world are getting infected. I would love to see it maybe take that next step. But that is something, again, that's something that's always been kind of interesting about the 28 Days and Weeks franchises. It's always been kind of located to the UK, where the rest of the world has been fine, where every other kind of film or series like this, it's usually always the whole world that falls. But no, I mean, I feel like at some point, I mean, it's gotta get out, right? And at some point, there's no way this thing can stay contained forever just within the UK. I mean, I wouldn't be too surprised if we start seeing it spread to other continents by the end of not this film, but at least by the end of the trilogy. And then, yes, that could set up a TV series where you're seeing this thing spread to other parts of the world, and they're doing everything they can to try and beat it back, like they did the first time. It seems like it spread to other parts. Like you mentioned, Paris, we saw in 28 weeks, the virus started to spread to other countries. But luckily, it seems like based on the title crawl for 28 years later, they were able to beat it back and contain it within the UK. But that's not to say it's not going to get out again at some point. So I would love to see that happen at some point towards the end of the trilogy. And maybe that could set up a TV series of sorts. I would love to see a TV series. Hell yeah. If it's done well, of course. If Alex Garland is writing it and Danny Boyle is involved, then I would love a TV series. But it has to have the right people involved, and it has to kind of, honor what came before. They have to maintain that same level of quality. I wouldn't want just a random 28 years later TV show that sucked. It needs to have the proper care and respect that went into this film.
Yeah, and at a certain point, too much of a good thing, right? Have it be contained. We know that we have something to look forward to because after this movie, there is another one coming. And so that will keep, the spirit alive. But that might just be enough, right? It might just be enough to have the movies and not necessarily a show that then kind of ruins it for us, or that goes on too long and doesn't carry the same spirit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be awesome. And it looks like, Teletubby and Church might be are going to be right at the beginning of the film. Love that. I had a feeling it would be. I mean, when you're doing a flashback to the day of the outbreak, I always envision the film starting with the Teletubby scene and the church scene. I always figured that's how the film would start. So that's awesome. I cannot wait to see the flashbacks in particular. It's going to be really fun. Really, really fun. Awesome. Let's see what else we got. Yeah, iPhone 15 was filmed with some camera lens and cinematic thing that Apple added since the iPhone 13 dropped on their camera roll. Yeah, I believe it's what is it? Apple. I mean, I was just looking at it the other day. But yeah, it's not just it's not just grab an iPhone and start filming with it, and you're going to get clear imagery like this. Like Vado says as well. It's not you're not going to get this kind of imagery with just a stock iPhone. There's other very sophisticated lenses and technology attached to it. Like we see, it's not just let's pull out an iPhone and get crystal clear 4K imagery. They're not that sophisticated yet. I mean, you'll get some good shots. Don't get me wrong. The iPhone seems to have the most sophisticated camera out of all of the smartphones. But yes, there's tons of other technology that goes into getting these kind of crystal clear shots with an iPhone. It's not just the iPhone itself. You need all this other stuff, all these other lenses and everything else attached to it. Yes, a stock iPhone would not do it. Very true. But again, it's still so impressive. It's still just so impressive. And now that we have this closer look at this one that is running down the causeway, we've seen this one in the trailer. It looks like this is the one that gets impaled with the arrow. This dude looks a little bit smaller than Chi. Chi looks a lot bigger than this. So yeah, I think you guys are right. I think this is two totally different characters that we're going to be getting between Chi's alpha infected on the bus and the one that we get on the causeway. It is looking more and more like these are two different characters. Yes. I mean, this just looks totally different from Chi. It doesn't look anywhere near as jacked, nowhere near as big. The hair looks a little bit different. Everything looks a little bit different. So yeah, I'm starting to lean a lot more towards the side where those were two different characters, not the same character.
I
Yeah.
like it, but it's very difficult to tell, right?
It's hard.
It's
It is
very
hard to tell for
because
sure. Yeah.
with the lighting, I'm saying that it's two different people, but somebody made an excellent comment. The lighting can
Lighting.
have an effect on the how dark hair looks and how
Yeah.
red his eyes look. So potentially, however, I mean, you said it. They wouldn't show us his death, the death scene where he is actually being severely hurt in a trailer. They wouldn't
Mhm.
do that. They pay attention to details. So
Yeah. I think so. I think so. I like it. I like it. I mean, and I hope they are again because it looks like this one's not going to last super long. It looks like this one's going to get very much impaled while Jamie and Spike are on their way back to Holy Island. And it looks like this one's going to have a much bigger part in the film, more of a main antagonistic kind of role. I'm guessing. So yeah, I'm more and more in the camp that these are two different characters. But again, as you mentioned, the lighting is a very good point to at the very least bring up because lighting can very much change the entire dynamic and look of a shot for sure, for sure. Awesome stuff, guys. Awesome stuff. Maybe the infected stay away from the bone temple because they are afraid of whatever reminds them of death. And that's what I was wondering. Like, could this bone temple just be one of those places where even the infected just don't go? Could that just be like a natural feeling that they have where they don't go near this bone temple? Maybe. I mean, maybe. Who knows? But I did wonder that. Because we know, I mean, we know the rage virus seems to have a very interesting effect on the local ecosystem, if nothing else. I mean, we see how the rats, respond in 28 days later, how you can tell that the infection is coming when the rats start coming. If the rats are running away in a certain direction, that means the infection is coming from that direction. But we also see something similar in the 28 years later trailers as well, especially when the alpha infected hops into the bus. It's almost like he sends all the wildlife in the area scurrying away from him. Like nature is afraid of this. Nature can sense this rage virus invading its territory. And nature is responding to it. This thing is literally scaring nature in a sense. And I always thought that was super creepy. That's just super profound that even nature is fleeing from this virus.
wow, I really like that, Jeremy. That is profound. And it reminds me of how this all started. The irony in how animalistic people become when they're infected with a rage virus is that um, the chimpanzee that was the first thing to have this virus was watching humans be violent.
Yes,
That's what they were
exactly.
subject to. It wasn't other animals being
Oh,
violent. They were
yeah.
watching humans do just about the most horrible things. They had a chimpanzee and he couldn't move and just screams full of the worst of humanity, what humans do to each other, not animals. So nature learned from us how to be violent to this point. It makes sense that nature would be terrified of humans because we are the most violent creatures.
We are. At the end of the day, humanity is absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see that this thing has that kind of just primordial effect on the local ecosystem to the point where even nature is fleeing away from this virus because it knows how bad it is. And yeah, like you said, you bring up a very good point. We see that chimpanzee in the beginning. He's strapped with forced to look at these screens in front of him. He ain't watching animals hurt each other. He's watching the very worst that humanity has to offer, the very worst that humans are capable of. And of course, that's why it's called the rage virus, because it is bringing out the primal rage within you. Yeah, I think it makes good sense. And I think it's an interesting kind of parallel there between the two. But yeah, I could see a 28 series, like 28 seconds, minutes, months, etc. Yeah, I thought like 28 hours later or something like that could be very interesting. There's actually a 28 seconds later that is a fan-made short TV film that you and I recently saw, and we were actually
Yeah.
super impressed with. A subscriber of the channel, someone who's a huge fan of the 28 Years Later franchise, and also seems to be an independent filmmaker and storyteller of themselves, called Los Productions. I'll link their video in the chat so you guys can check it out after the stream. They made their own, super cool. I mean, super props to everybody that was involved in this too. You can tell, passion went into making this. But they made their own short film, their own short spin-off film, set within the world of 28 Years Later, and it's called 28 Seconds Later. And it's a super little interesting short film. I was actually very impressed by it. Sometimes, these things can be hit or miss, of course, but I love seeing the passion behind them. But this one had passion behind it, and it was good on top of it. And it was super cool to see. Again, the channel's called Los Productions. And they recently also put out a making of video, which I haven't had a chance to see yet, but I am going to check it out at some point because I would love to see the process that they went through making this little short fan film. But yeah, a very dedicated fan and amateur filmmaker of themselves, made a 28 seconds later short film. And I was impressed with it. I got to say, I was impressed with the level of detail. I was impressed with how the rage virus was portrayed. It looked very real, pretty convincing. And I was in awe. I mean, it's nice to see, and I love seeing small independent productions like this. I love supporting smaller creators and independent creators that are out there doing these things because it's their passion, not because they're getting paid to do it, but because they love storytelling and they love these stories. So yeah, after the stream, guys, definitely check it out. I will drop a link to it in the chat. Oh, there it is. There's a link to it right there in the chat now. Thank you so much, PM. Oh no, that's a link to the Discord. Sorry. I'll drop a link to it
We'll
in
put it
the.
up.
Yeah, we'll put it up at the end of the stream. But no, I was super impressed by it. So Los Productions, if you end up seeing this at some point, again, bravo again to you, my friend, because that was very well done, and I know you enjoyed it as well.
It was great. It was amazing. And one of the things, when you guys watch it, you will notice that while that person, one of the people in the film, has the rage virus, they do snap out of it. They snap out of rage when they see something that moves them profoundly. And so that, along with the changes that we're seeing in the infected, where they're processing things, makes me think that it might just take something to snap you out of the rage, right?
Yeah.
Because we know it as the rage virus, so it incites violence. But for 28 years, can you still be super violent? At some point, you would think that the rage would just fade away or settle into a plateau. So I like that he included that in his film.
Yeah, super genius, isn't that? Like, that is super genius. And I did like that. I mean, because it does, I feel like something like that makes sense. I feel like something that would be fitting with something like this rage virus, where, yes, as you mentioned, it does instill rage. It brings out that primal kind of instinct. But we're all humans at the end of the day, and we all have things that are very meaningful to us. And seeing those things always elicits an emotional response. And if these things are still living, breathing humans, not undead creatures that have risen from the dead, these are still living, breathing humans that are just sick. They're just infected with the rage virus. And that's how Alex Garland describes them: living, breathing humans that are sick with the rage. But yeah, I could totally see that being a very interesting aspect, where seeing something that brings back an emotional memory that you have a super deep connection to, seeing something could snap you out of that rage. Love that idea. Love that idea. Brilliant. It was brilliant. It was a fun little film. It's a fun little fan film. I like seeing stuff like that. It's full of passion. And last, I mean, I would be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about this before we close it out, because this has been one of the shots that you and I have been super intrigued with. This was in one of the latest TV spots where here we see the Bone Temple and the surrounding kind of pillars around the Bone Temple with this weird swirl of fire. And I even heard someone thinking that maybe it's fireflies, which is also very interesting as well. But I love this shot. Just again, the aesthetic of Danny Boyle's cinematography and his filmmaking. Everything always looks so beautiful. And the shots have looked so fucking awesome in all of these trailers. But this is one of my favorite shots that I've seen up until this point. Seeing the Bone Temple from this POV, being super above it, seeing the fire or the fireflies kind of swirling around it, creates that kind of mystical energy aspect to it. I can't wait to see what's happening in this scene.
Yeah, and now that I look at it, it makes me think that um, when I first saw it, I thought it's on fire.
Me too.
Somebody set this on fire.
Me too.
However, I looked at pictures of it not on fire, and the trees have um, wood, panels of wood sticking out of the structure. So it's
Yes.
a long
Yeah.
structure, but then panels of wood,
Yeah.
which makes me think they're there for a reason. So potentially they're there to give light. So this is just how they set it up. It's all meant to be there because they're structured to the light. It's if it's fireflies, it would be randomness. But if you
Could be.
look at the skull
Yeah.
structure in the middle, there's perfect structure to how the lights are set up. So it makes me think that this might be sort of a ritual or an initiation into the cult.
Maybe. It does have that. It gives off that kind of ritualistic feel, doesn't it, to it a bit, where it does feel like you're watching some kind of mystical ritual, some kind of initiation, as you mentioned as well. And we do know, based on the photos that we've been seeing and the posters for 28 Years Later, at some point, Spike adds a skull to the Bone Temple. I mean, we did a whole video on it a few weeks ago when that poster first dropped. And we had some very interesting ideas as to what this could mean. Whose skull could that be? Whose skull is Spike adding to this Bone Temple? Some people think it's his father. Some people think it's his mother. Some people think it's a random infected that he hunted on his own and is just adding to the temple as a way of initiation, which is also an interesting theory. But yes, at some point we do see Spike is going to add a skull to this Bone Temple. And yeah, maybe this is part of that ritual. Maybe the ritual of adding something to the Bone Temple, of adding your own skull to the Bone Temple, is a rite of, maybe that is part of his rite of passage of sorts. And as you mentioned, we see these little wooden kind of kind of little legs kind of protruding all throughout the Bone Temple. Maybe these are meant to hold some of those lights, and of course meant to climb up as well. But here we see him adding a skull to the Bone Temple. So it looks like we're going to get some kind of weird, maybe ritual happening here at the Bone Temple, as some people in the chat have suggested. Maybe it is a ritual of sorts.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. And I find it very fitting that it is the last one needed to complete this
One on top.
structure,
Yeah.
which makes me think, were they just waiting for Spike? Has this whole thing been leading up to waiting for the one? We do get Jimmy will come with the clouds statement,
Yeah.
and that is also a statement, a biblical statement of waiting for the one that's going to usher us into this era of judgment.
The
So could
resurrection.
they be wait exactly? Could
Yeah.
they be waiting for their one in the Bone Temple?
Maybe. Maybe. Yeah, he will come, Jimmy, with the clouds. And not only with the clouds, but when you climb to the top of the Bone Temple, you're closer to the clouds. You see the clouds in the background as well. He will come with the clouds. So it's
Mm.
always been a very interesting standout line. And as you mentioned, it does kind of speak to it comes from the book of Revelations, and it speaks to the second coming of Jesus Christ, or the chosen one, as you mentioned. Yeah, I think it's a very interesting idea that maybe this Bone Temple cult has been waiting for their last one to come and add this final piece to this Bone Temple. And maybe that is the role Spike's going to play. Cool theories, guys. Very cool theories. But I can't wait. I cannot wait. I mean, the hype surrounding this film, I cannot even express in words how excited I am for 28 years later. And this whole trilogy, I think this is going to be a phenomenal trilogy. And I think, again, I'm going to be very surprised if 28 years later, when it does come out, if it doesn't just completely usher in a whole new standard for what horror films can be. I do think it's going to set a whole new bar for going forward for what these kind of films can be, how sophisticated they can be, how story driven they can be, and how you don't have to rely just on blood and gore and death and shock value and guts for a horror film. You can have a sophisticated storyline weaved in there with all the classic horror elements. And I think we're seeing that more and more with some certain horror aspects of things that have been coming out lately, like From. From is a perfect example of this. And any of you who are a fan of 28 Years Later, I would highly recommend checking out the horror TV series From. It's just called From, From. It's on MGM Plus, and you can also watch it through Amazon Prime. It is one of the best horror TV series I've seen maybe ever in my life, because it blends both of these aspects incredibly well, where you get the classic kind of horror elements mixed in with like really good sophisticated storytelling with really good compelling characters that very much grab you and you get super invested in. And if you're a fan of 28 Weeks Later, Harold Perrineau, which was in 28 Weeks Later, is the main character in From as well. So there's that connection there. He was in both. But if you like 28 Years Later and you're looking for something to kind of get into while we wait for these next few weeks for the film to come out, check out From, guys. It is such a good horror show. There's been 3 seasons of it so far. Season 4 is starting filming in a few days. We'll be covering it extensively here on the channel over the next few months. We'll be covering everything pertaining to From season 4. It's one of the biggest shows we cover here on the channel.
Mm.
It's got a super awesome, welcoming community. The Discord that we have was actually first built around our From community, and we have since branched out into other stuff, which is awesome. I'm so glad we have. But yeah, if you guys are looking for a good series to invest into, I would recommend check out From. It is such a good show because it really blends classic horror with just really good characters, good character development, good world building, and good storytelling. It's a beautiful mix of both. And I very much think 28 Years Later is going to be in that same vein, where it's going to show people just how good horror can be, and how because horror has never been, at least growing up, horror was always one of
Mm-hmm.
those genres that was not ever taking it was never taken super seriously, like
Yeah.
drama and action and some of these other genres. Horror just wasn't sophisticated, just wasn't super sophisticated. It was
Mm-hmm.
campy. It was kind of, and that's what horror was supposed to be. That was classic horror. But nowadays, I feel like we're getting a whole new kind of hybrid version of horror, where we're getting the classic horror elements that we all love and that we all grew up with, but we're getting sophisticated storytelling with it as well. It's a nice mix of both. And that's exactly what From does. And I think that's exactly what 28 Years Later is going to do. It's going to set a whole new bar for how good horror can be and how good the storytelling in horror can be.
Completely agree. Completely agree. And it's not just sophisticated and deep, but it's beautiful, aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah.
In horror, we are so used to getting the gore that it's
Yes.
not necessarily beautiful cinematography. It's just gore. It's just
Yeah.
like, here's the worst things that we could think of a human body going through. There's the film. But this is horror with the beauty, the aesthetics are there. Every shot, even this poster, is meticulous in the way that they have structured it, the color palette, and it all started with Boots. When they chose Boots as spoken word for a horror film, that lets you know that this is different. It's horror, but it has so many different levels as to put in a poem, a spoken word poem, in a trailer for a horror film that you would never think goes together, but it just goes so beautifully well together. I think, I mean, Boots says it all, really.
I mean, it really does, doesn't it? Again, the trailer just completely blew us away. I mean, you and I must have watched it probably 50 times that first week it came out, just poring over every frame of it. And it's just such a good trailer. And yes, the fact that they went above and beyond and integrated the Boots poem into the trailer, not only is it aesthetically pleasing, not only does it sound cool, but it also has a much deeper meaning within the film. And that's why I had so much fun doing my very first 28 years later trailer breakdown when the new trailer broke down, when the new trailer came out. I loved getting into the nitty gritty and breaking down what that poem really means, because that poem is incredibly complex and incredibly deep and tells a very, very bleak story of what happens to British soldiers while they're marching in the Second Boer War in South Africa, and how there would be literal accounts of these soldiers going crazy, literally going absolutely crazy, because all they would see every single day is the sight of boots in front of them as they're marching nonstop every single day, being driven mad at the sight and sound of boots in front of you. That is what the Boots poem is ultimately all about, showcasing what these soldiers went through during that war. But it also showcases the repetitive nature of marching in and of itself. And that's one thing that is going to have super close ties to the film of 28 Years Later. That's why I loved breaking down that film, breaking down that trailer and the poem, because we're going to see the themes of the repetitive nature over and over and over again. Not only is the Boots poem about repetition and being forced to march day in and day out, seeing the same thing day in and day out, it's that repetitive nature, but the film is also surrounded by repetitive nature in and of itself. When you're set in this kind of post-apocalyptic world, you are reliving the same day every single day. You are forced to live this life of repetition every single day you wake up, whether it's the hunters providing food for the community and having to march up and down again the hills that we see Jamie and his son Spike marching up and down again to try and hunt. There's such a deeper meaning there with this Boots poem and what it means throughout the actual film. And definitely check out my very first breakdown. If you guys haven't seen that already, I go super deep into the Boots poem and some of the deeper ties it has to the film, or at least how I saw it anyway. But no, that was one thing that told me that this is something different. This isn't just going to be your average run-of-the-mill campy horror story. There was some real thought that went into crafting this story, the themes that go into this film, and I love that. I love that they're going the extra mile to give us something that seems to be much more sophisticated than your average horror film, where it has really good storytelling mixed in, really compelling characters, and something that's worth getting invested in. I think that's what we're going to see.
Oh yeah, for sure. I love that's one of my favorite videos that you've ever done, the
One of my
Boots
favorites.
breakdown,
Yeah.
because I didn't know anything about that poem. I thought that it was just spoken word poetry. So the layers of it, right?
Yeah.
Such deep meaning in the poem, and the way that it's spoken. The
Yeah.
way that it's not just a reading of the poem, but it's a reading that goes insane as you're listening. I
Yeah.
love Boots. I want it sang at my birthday party. I want to walk down the aisle to Boots. I want to have them play it at my funeral. I am obsessed with Boots.
It really is so good. It is so good. And again, it's not just so good because it sounds so good, but it's great because of those deeper meanings and those deeper layers that are going to correlate very much with some of the themes that we're going to see in 28 years later. So again, just brilliant marketing when it came to 28 years later and creating those trailers. Absolutely brilliant marketing. This was brilliant marketing too, as well, when they hid the little hidden box cipher that translates to Memento Mori in the second trailer, which we know is going to be a huge theme of the movie itself. You know, remember that you must die. Remember that death is coming for you. Remember to live because you will die eventually. That is the whole mantra of Memento Mori. And I love how they hid that in that second trailer. Not a lot of people picked that up, but we found it pretty quickly, and I was super excited translating that thing. But yeah, overall, I cannot praise the marketing more than I can for 28 Years Later. They have been marketing geniuses in terms of how they have presented this film to the public, whether it's the trailers, the TV spots, the behind the scenes interviews and snippets. Just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I cannot, whoever is on the marketing team for this film, you earned your paycheck. 100% you have earned your paycheck and then some. So at this point, all that's left is to dive into the film when it comes out on June 20th. I know it comes out a little bit earlier for other parts of the world, but at least by June 20th, everybody will have access to it. So we can't wait. We will be right here diving into all things 28 Years Later, leading up to the film and after the film as well. Of course, after it comes out and we all have a chance to see it, we will be discussing it at length here on the channel. So definitely come back and hang out with us after the film comes out and join the discussions and the conversations with us. And of course, join the theorizing and all of the theories. I know that we were going to be diving into a lot of fan theories, which we got into some great ones in the comment section here in the live chat. So our next stream will focus more on the comment section of our last few videos, because again, there's so many really good, brilliant fan theories that are in our comment sections for the last few videos that we did. So for our next 28 Years Later stream, we'll be covering all of the new information that comes out over the next few days. I imagine they'll probably continue to release small snippets and small new TV spots that have some new trailers. I imagine they'll continue that hype until the film comes out. So we'll be covering all of the new information and all of the new scenes that come out. We'll be covering it here. And of course, we will be going live every Friday and every Sunday night to dive into all things 28 Years Later and some of the other stuff that we're going to be covering here on the channel as well. I know, of course, today the Stranger Things Season 5 trailer recently came out. I am working on a video right now for the Stranger Things Season 5 trailer. Stranger Things is also going to be a show that we're going to be covering here on the channel, definitely. I'm a big Stranger Things fan. At least season 1 and season 4 I really liked. Season 2 and 3 were not the best in my opinion, but I feel like season 4 was a return to form for Stranger Things. So they released their first trailer today of Stranger Things Season 5. And again, they all look like complete adults now. And you and I were joking about this, that they're all going to have beards by the time season 5 comes around. They do. Like they're all fucking just adults in season 5. They're nothing like the children that they started off on. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But I am working on a Stranger Things Season 5 trailer breakdown that should be up on the channel over the next few days. Welcome to Derry, we will also be covering here on the channel. We're both huge fans of Pennywise and of Stephen King. We love Bill Skarsgård in the role. I feel like he's been super iconic, and he has brought the character of Pennywise to a whole new generation that didn't grow up with Tim Curry like we did. So we will definitely be covering Welcome to Derry here on the channel as well. And if there's some other shows that I'm eyeing that I'm thinking about covering on the channel, throughout the year as well. But as of right now, 28 Years Later is the main thing that I am focused on. I am so much looking forward to this film, and we will continue to be diving into everything while we wait for its release. So I'm looking forward to that. I am looking forward to that. Oh, of course, and last but not least, I know you and I saw this the other day, which made us super excited, but they are apparently mulling over the potential possibility of another True Detective season. Season 1, of course, with Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson returning and reprising their roles. And I could not be happier about this. I really hope this does happen, especially if it is Nick Pizzolatto who is going to be attached to it as well, the original team returning to True Detective. Because, I mean, True Detective has had some good seasons over the years, but nothing comes close to season 1. Season 1 of True Detective, in particular, Matthew McConaughey's character as Russ Cole, is one of the most well-written characters I've ever seen in my life. One of the most complex and deep and damaged characters I've ever seen in my life. And Matthew McConaughey played him so brilliantly. And I know you feel the same as well. I know he's one of your all-time favorite characters. So I cannot wait. I really hope we do get another season of True Detective with Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey, and we get that very same level of storytelling that we got in that first season, because I know this was one of our favorites.
Favorite, all-time favorite. Detective Ruskell is my favorite all-time character ever in
So
the
good.
history of movies or films or series. I can listen to Ruskell go on and on and on about his philosophy on life, which
Yeah.
is quite pessimistic and realistic and dark forever. Some of the monologues, guys, if you have not seen it, you need to see it. The
Ah,
monologues that
so,
he gives are just iconic. They're
yeah.
so depressing, and that is so me. I'm so excited. I just love him.
I love this. I love the possibility of this happening, because it was one of the most iconic characters that has ever been written, not just in TV history, but in film history in general. It's one of the most compelling characters I've ever seen in my life. So yeah, please make this a possibility. If we're going to get the same level of storytelling that we got in season 1, then hell yes, I would love to see a season 2 of True Detective with these characters returning. I mean, after all, this is one of the things that started at least my deeper, fascination with the King in Yellow, which I know you're a fan of as well.
That's how we met. That is
Yes,
how we met,
this is
guys.
how we
We met
met.
because of the King in Yellow, the
Yes.
cosmic entity.
Yeah.
So had it not been for the King in Yellow, we would have no show.
I
At least
know,
with
right?
us together, you would still get the Jeremy show.
Well, it wouldn't be the same without you, that's for sure. Would not be the same. But no, I can't wait. I really hope this becomes a reality. It looks like all parties are open to doing it, and it looks like they have a story in mind for a new season. So I am all freaking for it. Bring on more True Detective. But that is going to do it for us tonight, ladies and gents. I want to thank all of you for joining us on this fine, fine Sunday evening or Monday, wherever you are joining us in the world. I very much appreciate each and every one of you hanging out with us every time we go live. It's always, you guys are super supportive. And I love the conversations that we've been having around this film. There's been so many good theorizing, so many good ideas, so many good predictions. So yeah, we'll continue this hype train moving along the tracks until the film gets here on the 20th. And we'll be talking all things 28 years later over the next few weeks. So again, big thank you to each and every one of you. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening, ladies and gents. And of course, a huge thank you to my wonderful co-host, the fabulous PM Philosophy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeremy, and thank you, Chad. The Rage Zone, the
Yeah,
Teletubby Massacre, iconic. This chat is the best. So
it is.
thank you, chat.
Yeah, big shout out to the chat. Biggest thank you, of course, goes out to you guys in the chat and all the support you guys have shown us for all the videos, the streams, everything we've done. We can't thank you enough. It is super, super, super appreciative. But thank you. We are going to dive into 28 years later again next week. We'll be live. Our next stream will probably be next Friday. Again, we're trying to keep the Friday and Sunday schedule going over the next few weeks. So we will be live again next Friday, diving into all things 28 years later and talking about all of the new stuff that I'm sure is going to be coming out throughout the week as we get more TV spots and more snippets as we get closer to the film releasing. So until next time, stay safe out there, ladies and gents. Watch out for that rage infected virus, and we will see you on the next one.